Good morning and welcome to the program. This is the AM show. I like to say the best breakfast show on the block. This is a place where we serve you news that matters and conversations that resonate. So in a bit, I'll be serving you the news for this morning, and then right after we get into the news review, we'll be speaking with financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe. He'll be our guest to join Benjamin Akakpo for the news review. Right after that, we get into AM Sport. Mufta Nabila Abdullahi will be here to present his segment, and then we'll talk about the biggest stories in the country. Today, we host President of IMANI Africa, Franklin Cudjoe, on the AM show. It's a conversation to review President Akufo-Addo's government, the recent reshuffle by President Akufo-Addo, and what he expects government to tackle before his tenure ends. More on this as he sits with Benjamin Akakpo later on in the show. After that, we will talk about Ghana diagnosed its first AIDS case in March 1986, and by May 1986, 26 cases had been identified. Since then, the country has experienced a generalized HIV epidemic with a current prevalence of 1.7% in general population. This resulted in HIV infection being seen as a death sentence, but antiretrovirals have revolutionized the treatment and management of this devastating virus. We'll discuss this and more about HIV later on in the show as well. And then we'll host Enterprise Insurance, which is 100 years old this year. The company has launched its centenary celebrations under the theme Celebrating Our Legacy, Securing Your Future. We'll hear more about this significant milestone as one of Ghana's most successful indigenous companies. All this and many more later on in the show. And then we'll open the phone lines for you to have your say, be it on social media or when we do open the phone lines. Join us because this show is about you and for you. My name is Sweetie Abochi, and I do this with Benjamin Akakpo. Welcome to the show. Time now for the news. This is AM News on the AM show. Details now. Now, the executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, Mary Ada, says her outfit is worried about the increasing rate of crime in political financing in the country. She's asking Ghanaians to join the fight against corruption in the political space. Martina Bugri reports.
The Ghana Integrity Initiative held its third zonal workshop for youth leaders on the theme Securing Ghana's Stability during the 2024 elections against serious and organized crime threat. The objective of the workshop is to deepen the understanding of the youth on organized crime. The executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, Mary Awelana Ada, said the country is contending with a monster all need to help address.
We, as three organizations, ASEP, Ghana Integrity Initiative, and the coalition GACC, are working on raising awareness of the youth, particularly those who are active in the political space, to understand this even more and to begin to act in ways that reverse the current trend of the increasing nature of our political party financing, which is evidently becoming apparent that there is some element of crime that funds some of these elections. We see people who are engaged in galamsey. We see people who then have to recoup their resources because at the end of the day they have funded you. So how do we get that narrative changed? And I believe that all of us need to be part of this change we are talking about. We need to live a democracy for our children that shows that fairness and the freeness of our democracy is what it is supposed to be, and it should be like that as it happens in other countries. We should not pay people to vote for us. We should not pay people to want to campaign with us. We should not pay people with the expectation that they would give us something in return, and that is what we are beginning to see. And worrying even more is the fact that the people themselves are willing and ready and available to collect the money to go and vote for us.
The program's research officer at the Ghana Integrity Initiative, Joseph Tete, raised concerns over the cost in contesting for political positions in Ghana.
And interestingly, in 2021, for a presidential candidate, one has to be spending in the regions of $100 million US dollars, $100 million US dollars for campaign. Again, for a parliamentary candidate standing for election, not the party primaries, but for election against other political parties, that individual should be spending an estimated 8.5 million Ghana cedis as campaign revenue or campaign funds that he or she would use for his or her campaign. And this is a cause for worry. Because
the founder of the Damango Parliament, Anampasa Bartolome Abraham, said resources meant for all is being siphoned for a few.
In our communities and societies, you notice that serious and organized crimes are posing a lot of challenges, basically putting the people in a cycle of poverty. What is supposed to be meant for everybody is being siphoned by a few. And so this workshop provides an empowering tool where we as a youth can rise up to be able to fight some of these crimes, especially those that have direct link to the finances and the economic livelihood of our local communities.
Now, a screening exercise in secondary schools in the Ashanti region has shown that a chunk of students in the second cycle school suffer from sickle cell anemia. Africa Eye Imaging Center, a non-governmental organization, is warning of the rising prevalence of sickle cell retinopathy due to sickle cell disease with SC genotypes, which could lead to loss of sight, especially among second cycle students. Oheming Tewia of our help desk has more.
Diabetic retinopathy and sickle cell retinopathy are blamed from the loss of sight among many Ghanaians. Ghana has the second highest prevalence of sickle cell SC genotype, coming after Antigua and Barbuda, an island of the United States of America. Unlike the SS genotype, which is more severe and accompanied by some common crises, the SC genotype is mild, but may be associated with considerable eye disease, especially after 20 years old. Out of 20,000 second cycle students screened in the Ashanti region, 500 students, representing 2.5%, recorded prevalence of SC genotype. Co-founder and CEO of medical NGO Africa Eye Imaging Center, Dr. Akwesi Ajiman Ahmed, warns the condition could lead to loss of sight.
20,000 of them had an eye screening, okay, and 20% of them with eye screening, we found out that of those that had SC genotype, 6% of them had sickle cell retinopathy. Okay, you will not find any number like this anywhere in the world. Okay, so it is a disease we have, and we have to manage it accordingly. Now, then the child gets blind. It means that they are going to be blind for more years than an adult.
The cost of treating retinal disease in Ghana ranges between 12,000 and 20,000. Africa Eye Imaging Center is supporting Ghanaians, especially sickle cell and diabetic patients, for early detection and treatment with free retinal imagery. The Seventh-day Adventist Hospital at Kwadaso, Transit Government and the Konfanochi Teaching Hospitals are some of the centers providing free retinal imagery. The group ensures diabetic patients obtain eye screening at least once a year.
When you develop an eye condition from diabetes or sickle cell, sometimes it requires surgery, and the surgery is very expensive. In Konfanochi, the surgery can cost as much as 12,000 cedis and above, and sometimes the vision is not guaranteed depending on the stage. So the whole idea is to create awareness, create publicity, provide the avenues and the means to get screened, so that people do not get to that stage.
The Kwadaso municipality is one of the beneficiary districts. Health authorities are taking advantage of the program to improve the eye health of over 169,000 residents. Pregnant women who made 4 or more visits to health facilities declined from 86 to 66% as they assess retinal imagery and other auxiliary services. It comes as the skilled delivery rate declined from 44 to 41% against the target of 65%. Grace Billy Kampitip is the municipal health director.
The quality of care is very good. So if you look at the women who have attended ANC services 4 times or more, we recorded over 97.something%, okay, which means that the quality is good. The few who come, we are able to hold on to them. What it means is that if the more the woman comes to the facility, the higher the woman have access to a skilled personnel.
Meanwhile, the Municipal Health Directorate is encouraging residents to report early to health facilities. It comes as the municipality recorded an improvement in outpatient department visits from 80 to 82%. From Kumasi, for JoyNews, IMANI.
Still on health, lead consultant of the Maternal Mental Health Project, Dr. Promise Sepoga, has recommended a policy that will ensure the screening of pregnant women when they visit the hospital. He says this would help detect any risk. Dr. Sepoga made the call at a dissemination meeting for maternal mental health situational analysis in Ghana's Middle Zone in Sunyani. Precious Semevo has more.
Dealing with pregnant women, according to experts, requires tact and sensitivity, particularly when emotions are involved. Dr. Kwabena Kuma is the Deputy Director, Clinical Care at the Bono Regional Health Directorate.
Maternal mental health is a common condition, but it has not received the necessary attention from caregivers. And we didn't even have enough data to even inform us to address the problem.
To improve the mental health of pregnant women and women postpartum, the Ghana Health Service, WHO, and its partners embarked on a study to influence policy, practices, and community engagement. At the dissemination meeting in Sunyani for the Maternal Mental Health Situational Analysis in Ghana's Middle Zone, the lead consultant for the project, Dr. Promise Sepoga, said there is a need for some modifications in the healthcare environment to ensure privacy and embrace the support of partners and relations during labor and delivery. He recommended a policy for early screening and detection of maternal mental health disorders.
This study has found that the burden of maternal mental health disorder, the commonest is what we call the perinatal depression, is as high as 50.4% in Ghana. It's about almost 10% in the primary district care setting, about 30% the regional level, and then when you get to tertiary, the highest level of care, as high as 40%. But the recent study from the Upper East found 50%. These point to a picture of a high prevalence of that problem. So the recommendation is to screen all pregnant women, okay, at the first time they visit the hospital during pregnancy. Screen them again in the second trimester. Screen them again in the third trimester. Screen them again after delivery. The whole point about screening is that, so you see the scores. So the score is high. So this woman has become a higher risk for maternal mental health disorder, depression. So we refer to the clinical psychologist early, because if we do not do that, then it escalates into more severe problem.
Dr. Joanna Ansong, team lead, non-communicable diseases and risk factors, WHO Ghana, wants an approach that would build on existing structures.
WHO is recommending that we do a more of a systematic approach to integration so that we can learn our lessons, we can generate the evidence, and that again will be an advocacy tool to convince everybody that now this system is working and we need to scale up. There are pockets of screening services going on in some facilities, but we want to ensure that the services are standardized and the services are well integrated into our existing systems and structures.
Precious Semevo, JoyNews, Sunyai.
Away from health, a Ghanaian mining expert, Engineer Henry Entry, is charging mining companies to align their policies with successful mining countries. Engineer Entry believes it's the best way to attract mining investors into the country. He was speaking at a public lecture organized by the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology College of Engineering.
But despite that, if you look at mid-sized gold reserves, Africa has the highest rates. We beat most of the mining jurisdictions. So then the question becomes, how do we respond to this paradox of mineral wealth existing side by side with pervasive poverty in the continent? And I address the first one on a competitive mineral policy. As a country, our policies must be sufficiently competitive in a global context. We should benchmark our policies with minerals-endowed countries, which is what Ivory Coast and Burkina Faso are doing. They've taken the mining policies of Ghana and keeps on enhancing it to attract investors. Now you have a number of their students at UMAN and other universities to go back and develop their mineral resources. We need a robust infrastructure, especially of energy and reports. We need an improved mineral cadastre to increase transparency in the management of mineral resources. In many countries, you can just sit at your house and you can go on the GI system and you know which blocks have been taken and which areas are available for exploration. You click a button and you get all the reports. You click a button, you can pay online and get your geophysics and all the reports. It's not happening in Ghana. We need to minimize administrative bureaucracies in the granting of our mining license, and more importantly, this political influence in the granting of our mining licenses. But what drives mining is exploration. And countries like Canada, Australia have come up with mechanisms, tax credits, to encourage exploration companies. And it is time for Ghana to consider the value-added tax exemptions and other taxes so that these investors, bypassing us to Ivory Coast and Burkina Faso and other areas, will find it attractive to explore in the country. But more importantly, academia and the Ghana Geological Survey should collaborate to compile what I call Atlas of Mineral Potential Sites. Because when Australian geoscience conducted such an exercise, it attracted a number of investors. These are where the lithium is, this is where the gold is, and so on. So that collaboration should start happening so that we can have these sites, potential sites. So we talked about mineral policy. We're going to fix it. I want to concentrate on what I call depoliticization and commercial transactions. And as a country, academia, industry, and the government must urgently and actively contribute to improving the sector.
And our Municipal Chief Executive for Jirapa, Nicholas Soyiri, has assured residents of the area that the police is closing in on persons alleged to have murdered Chief Executive Officer of Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, Eric Johnson. He says the team is leaving no stone unturned in unraveling the mystery surrounding his death, describing the act as callous and inhumane. Rafiq Salam reports.
Jirapa Municipal Chief Executive Lawyer Nicholas Soyiri, who also doubles as the head of the Jirapa Musek, first condemned the heinous act that took place on February 11.
Let me, on behalf of the Jirapa Municipal Assembly and the Municipal Security Council, express our profound condolences to his family and the grieving public. I condemn in no uncertain terms the barbaric and inhumane act committed against an industrious son of Jirapa, Upper West Region, and Ghana at large. It is unquestionable for any human being to be subjected to such treatment, much more the person of Mr. Eric Johnson, whose enterprise lifted the corporate image of Jirapa globally and significantly impacted many lives across the country, particularly in Jirapa.
He stated that the security agencies are not resting on their oars and they are doing everything possible to unravel the mystery surrounding the death of Eric Johnson.
The security agencies have already begun in-depth investigations into the matter, and 7 suspects were arrested. After lengthy interrogations and profiling, 2 suspects were granted bail, police inquiry bail, to periodically report to the police. The remaining 5 were arraigned before the Wa District Court on 14 February 2024 and have been remanded into police custody and to reappear on 28 February 2024. The general public will be updated regularly on new developments in the case. The security will not rest on its oars until the perpetrators are properly brought to book. But the assurance I can give is that the police are closing in on the perpetrators, and within a short while we'll get to know the real culprits behind the matter.
Lawyer Nicholas Soyiri also spoke of plans put in place to ensure that the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel continue to function and also the safety of the people of Jirapa.
After the incident, the Municipal Security Council engaged with management of the facility. The principal aim of the meeting with the management of the security was to ensure that persons coming to the facility are safe. Adequate security measures were taken to ensure that more policemen are deployed to the facility. Secondly, there were concerns about the animals, the wild animals there. But I can assure you all that per the discussions Municipal Security Council has had with management of the facility, there's no cause to fear.
Now, a lecturer at the Simon Diodeng Dombo University of Business and Integrated Studies, Dr. R.T.A. Udo, is asking victims of sexual harassment at schools in the country to report the act to the appropriate authorities to address. Speaking at an empowerment summit at the SDD UBDIS, Dr. Udo noted that the only way the act will reduce is when perpetrators are exposed and punished. Rafik Salam again.
Sexual harassment and gender discrimination since the days of yore are deeply rooted problems that transcend borders, affecting individuals across the world. Narrowing the issue to workplaces and educational institutions, there have been reports of sexual harassment and gender discrimination at secondary and tertiary levels. Majority of them are unreported. The Simon Diodeng Dombo University of Business and Integrated Development Studies, SDD UBITS, is therefore not oblivious of these issues and are bent on changing the tide. As a result of that, the university has come out with a sexual harassment policy aimed at empowering and encouraging victims to report. Ayamba Abubakar is a counselor for SDD UBITS.
You see, what is funny about sexual harassment is that many people don't appreciate the impact of it. Sometimes it's a gradual process that will lead you to a big problem without you knowing. When we talk of sexual harassment, we're saying that it's just a sexual advancement made from one person to another person without the acceptance or the consent of the other party. It could be male to male, it could be female to female, it could be male to female and vice versa. It could be lecturers to students, students to lecturers, co-workers, even in the same office. Sexual harassment issues happen. Sorry to say, my dear sisters, some of us, we even feel happy that we are close to this lecturer. We are happy and we are proud that, no, if you are close to this person, you will be able to get favors from him. You don't need someone to favor you. It's only a block-headed person that wants favors. Who told you will not pass your exam? You've already defined yourself before coming to the school. You don't need anybody's favor. What you need to do is to do your work and learn accordingly. And no one is supposed to harass you or take advantage of you or penalize you for any reason. The school will not take it.
A lecturer at SDD UBITS, Dr. Rita Udo, who also doubles as University Teachers Association Women's Executive Officer, encouraged victims of sexual harassment to report their perpetrators to enable the authorities address the issue.
Holding people and smooching them, these are things that are considered sexual harassment. When you stalk someone, it's also sexual harassment. If you find yourself that every time there's one particular person that keeps following you wherever you go, that is sexual harassment. We also have sending people pornography without their consent. As I speak with a lot of students, one of the things that have been said is that we are afraid that when we report, the lecturer is going to grade me low, and therefore I don't want to report. But in actual case, that shouldn't be the case. If you have been sexually harassed, either by your colleagues, especially if it is a lecturer that has done that, you have every right to report.
So that was Rita Ujo on sexual harassment there. But that's how we wrap up for the AM News on the AM Show. Up next is News Review with Dr. Dogbe, who's a financial analyst. Please stay with us.
A very good morning to you. Welcome on the News Review segment. My director this morning, Loretta, just said something that put that smile on my face. Something I can't share with you, but something interesting all the same, to do with my green-colored jacket this morning. And it just struck me this morning as I was thinking through a number of things. Yesterday, you know, of course, we launched our election HQ, election headquarters. You know, all the tidbits you need to know as far as elections are concerned. You need to be right here on this network, this channel, JoyNews. And after that and other things I did yesterday, I was absolutely beat, knackered. And I woke up this morning and just realizing how tired I was, exhausted. The French would say, épuisé. I dragged myself here, and if tiredness were a person, it would be me this morning. But we thank God for life, we thank God for strength, and we thank God for being here to serve you. Sometimes you have no idea what it takes to be here. But as a colleague of mine will say, Winston Amwa, we chose this profession. So we must stick to the tenets. Well, right before I get to my guest, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, helping us to bring you this segment every weekday. They're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Reach out to them at any of their branches. Where can you locate them? Well, here in Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Energy State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiaman Zama. Their call lines are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And the start of the news review here, and I present to you financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe. He is my guest. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Ben. Your director was right. Yeah, you really look sharp in that suit.
Okay. That's good to know. I wish my pocket were sharper. And inflation is already beginning to inch up a bit again. I'm sure you followed all of those. But it's been a week since our last conversation. I'd like to find out what is on your mind before we get into the papers. There's been the reshuffle of ministers. There have been many other matters in between, some of which I am gearing up to share my thoughts on Friday, blunt thoughts. But for now, I'd like to find out from you, which one of these are you looking forward to talking about?
You know, Ben, I believe that, thank you for having me again. I believe that there's been a litany of public calls on the president to reshuffle his government for quite some time now. Reshuffles of public or government appointees is usually a good move, but only when the timing is right. Then if this was done much earlier, I think it would have been a great move, because we would have had seen most likely the appointees coming in with fresh ideas and new perspective on key issues that matter for the economy. And they would have time to implement these ideas. These ideas, I believe, and perspective that would tackle the current issues we are facing as a nation. Because evidently, some of the current policy ideas haven't quite worked as expected. And in some cases, it has worsened the economic situation for the average Ghanaian. And so, if some of the ideas of those changed or reshuffled out, if these ideas did not work, and yet still they continued in the old ways, doing the same thing yet expecting different results, then it is fair to say that they have not been efficient at post. So many governments around the world, they use these reshuffles to help improve the effectiveness and the impact of the leader assigned to lead a particular government agency. I believe the goal of these reshuffles ideally is supposed to help recognize and remediate any inefficiencies in the government agencies. And when implemented on a timely basis, the new appointees coming in, they will have ample time to showcase their ideas and competence, in alignment with the mandate of the particular ministry that they have, or being assigned to. Considering the time that this was done, and to when a new administration is expected to come in, whether Dr. Bawumia or former President Mahama, I'm quite skeptical of the impact we'll see from these new appointees. But another key underlying factor for government reshuffles is to improve accountability. While existing appointees are reviewed regarding their accomplishments and any areas of opportunity or improvement that they may have. Yes, you can accomplish this accountability in a reshuffle, but the purpose is not only to reward those appointees who did well and show the door to those with abysmal performance. Their goal should be to also help new appointees to course correct from the direction that their predecessors were headed. And again, timing is of the essence here. So here's my thought quickly on why I think that these reshuffles would have been much better, or have much better impact if the president had done it earlier. I think that it is in the best interest of the nation, the government and these appointees, if reshuffles are done much earlier than we're seeing. I suspect that in many functioning democracies, midterm assessment of the ministers and government appointees is conducted to ascertain performance of these appointees, their effectiveness, and how well their strategies or policies align with the goals of the agencies they lead. The outcome of this should show where the changes are needed, and the reshuffles are done mid-time, not towards the end of the administration. Otherwise, in my opinion, it becomes more of a show, right, a facade, than any serious attempt to improve government efficiency and performance, as should be the goal of any reshuffle. Or better still, you could execute these reshuffles at the earlier part of the term, as soon as you notice inefficiency or lackluster performance, which will allow you as the president to reshape the administration to align with the nation's priorities and policy agenda. The fact remains that no president or even a leader in the corporate world can get it 100% correct on the first try in hiring folks to work for them. That is why reshuffles at the mid or early stages of the administration will project confidence to the citizenry that you are serious about leading with efficiency and to implement your visions effectively. Now, there were performance issues about some of the ministers that have been reshuffled out to other areas. That both the NDC and the MPP displayed that rare unity behind the push for the president to fire or reassign some of these ministers. I think that would have been ideal time for a reshuffle for the president to demonstrate that he indeed was listening to Ghanaians.
All right. Thank you for those thoughts. Interestingly, someone who was relieved of one position, it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul, now has become an advisor. And these, roles of advisors, right? You look at them sometimes and it's just a mechanism of creating jobs for people. Now he's an advisor to the lands minister and all of that. And people are asking, raising questions. But well, per the letter, he has the expertise and they're going to tap into that expertise. And since he's a member of parliament, there's not going to be any additional money or stream of money coming his way, whatever that means. But that's one thing that has been touted. But Mr. President himself, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, said that he did the reshuffle for Ghanaians, not for himself. And some have asked, yesterday when we launched our election HQ, they asked whether Mr. President didn't do it for his party rather than for Ghanaians. But anyway, those are some thoughts on. I don't know whether you have any follow-up thoughts before I get into the papers.
But I think we can only keep our fingers crossed, right? Whatever the goal is, if it is done for Ghanaians, we should be able to reap the benefits within the year. They have just about a year in office. But I think we will keep our fingers crossed to see the impact of this reshuffle.
All right, so we start with the Daily Graphic newspaper, Wisdom. Cleanest Region Ranking campaign launched today. Vote overwhelmingly for Mahama on December 7. NDC tells Ghanaians. NPP names national campaign committees push to exceed revenue target. New finance minister urges GRA. It's interesting how with every passing finance minister, once they take over, they start with all of these, there is this excitement and do this and do that. I'm sure they quickly learn that the system is what it is. And not that he wouldn't know, he should know by now. Casa Preco raises 600 million Ghana cedis through stock exchange. On the back page, release of 150 million Ghana cedis for potholes patching inadequate. That's according to contractors. Recently, it's been spoken about. Speed up investigation into Drapa Dubai CEO's death, residents demand. And that's a dastardly act that was committed, snuffing out the life of this industrious son of the soil. Sometimes people say, Yayempe Adepa, because here is someone, Drapa, not so much going on economically and all of that. He sets up this place, and the member of parliament for that area, Cletus, was in the studio with me last week, and he mentioned that he had even set up this water producing, factory, bottled water and all of that, which was just about a week or two from being launched and everything, that he was targeting not just Ghana, but the sub-region. And this, unfortunately, has happened. But let me start from the back page. That story by Emmanuel Bonny. The Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry has called on the Ministry of Roads and Highways to release a minimum of 2 billion Ghana cedis to pay road contractors for work done. Now look at the difference. 150 million versus 2 billion Ghana cedis. That is, it means they are getting less than 10%. 200 million would have been 10%. They are getting less than 10%. It said, though the release of 150 million Ghana cedis for the engagement and payment to road contractors undertaking pothole patching across the country was in the right direction, the amount was a far cry from the 15 billion Ghana cedis owed its members. Now, the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber, Emmanuel Cherry, told the Daily Graphic when reached for his comments, that the release of 150 million Ghana cedis by the government was woefully inadequate to address the pothole situation in Accra, let alone the entire country. Quoting him, he says, "Inasmuch as we commend the government for releasing such an amount, we are pleading that the money should be increased in view of the nature of work." And if you look at that portion, if we zoomed in, you don't even need to zoom in. I'm sure on your screen you can see just how bad some of those patches of road are. Thankfully, sometimes when we speak, they listen. The Kolebu stretch, when I spoke about it, next thing we knew, they had actually gone there. And that's, we seem to be professionals in that, especially in election years. We'll go and be doing patchwork. Instead of ensuring that roads are done, will go and do patchwork. Of course, it may not even last up to the election, or right after, then you go back to situation normal. I've seen that in certain places, some parts of Jowlu, some parts of East Legon, some parts of Airport Res. I don't know. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
And I think let's ask the obvious question here. It seems to me that suddenly there are a handful of projects being funded by the government. Why now? Are these projects being done as political capital for the election, or these are being executed in good faith to develop the nation and build economic prosperity? We might speculate that according to previous trends, a handful of these election year projects are executed for political gain. Oftentimes we've seen politicians start new projects, or they give more support to ongoing projects in an election year, hoping to use these projects to showcase their achievements and demonstrate their commitment to addressing the needs and aspirations of the electorate. Yes, the nation needs some of these projects, but sometimes politicians hope that these projects will provide them with a tangible accomplishment or progress that they can highlight during election campaigns, which is why we are here today as a nation, because these projects cost a lot of money, and oftentimes they are not completed. And these are monies we could use to provide good health care for our people, right, or build additional hostels for our students in the university and so on. Right. Like I said, it's a great thing if these projects are used for or are done for positive impact with the right intention for the betterment of the nation, not to appeal to voters. New projects, especially those focused on infrastructure development or public services, this can have positive impact on the lives of citizens. So by initiating such projects in an election year, I think the administration will aim to appeal to voters to create a favorable impression. And I think they will hope that these voters will associate these projects with the party in power to enhance their electoral fortunes. It shouldn't be so, Ben.
Well, it definitely shouldn't be, but it turns out to be the norm rather than the exception. Let's look at that story where the finance minister is urging the GRA to push to exceed revenue targets. Now, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, it feels almost odd mentioning a Minister of Finance, and you're not hearing Ken Oforiatta, it's rather Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam. It's not to take away anything from Amin Adam, but Ken has been around our necks for so long that sometimes it's so difficult to even imagine it. It was almost as though there were no one else who could do the job apart from Ken. Well, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, has urged the Ghana Revenue Authority to develop a structured roadmap for the efficient implementation of tax measures in the 2024 budget. He also emphasized the need for coordination and clear roles to exceed the 2024 revenue target of 146 billion Ghana cedis. He gave the charge in Accra yesterday as the newly appointed finance minister when he led a delegation from the ministry to engage the management of the GRA to discuss collaborative efforts to boost domestic revenue mobilization. Well, my take, simple. We talk about this, without the right systems, we'll not get there. Are we taxing people vertically or horizontally? We know what the answer to that question is. We can either broaden it horizontally or keep taxing a single group of people over and over vertically. It's our own choice. I don't think this bit about push to exceed revenue target and all of that, if we had the systems in place, we wouldn't need anything about push to exceed because the systems would work. And so when I see comments like this, in a way, I find it comical. I find it laughable because we've been saying the same thing since the inception of the Fourth Republic. Why are we still, telling this story? But let me bring in the bit about the MPP and the NDC, and then we can move. So, NPP names national campaign committees. The New Patriotic Party has announced a tall list of persons to serve on various national campaign committees to prosecute its 2024 electoral campaign. The National Campaign Coordinating Committee, which will oversee the work of all other committees, is chaired by the 2024 flag bearer of the NPP himself, that is Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia. He will be assisted by the yet-to-be-announced running mate and include members such as the MPP chairman. The General Secretary of the MPP announced the list at a press conference in Accra yesterday. So it's quite a number of them. who are joining. In terms of the campaign advisory committee, you can talk about Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, former President John Agyekum Kufuor, among others, members of the National Council of Elders. In terms of campaign operations, you can look at the likes of Henry Nana Boakye, national organizer, among others, including the immediate past Minister of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, Dan Botwe, who is the campaign chairman. In terms of coordinators and spokespersons, there's a tall list there as well. Then let me do the NDC now. So from the MPP, I go to the NDC. What are they saying? Vote overwhelmingly for Mahama on December 7, NDC tells Ghanaians. So the National Democratic Congress has urged Ghanaians to make it an obligation to vote overwhelmingly for its flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, on December 7 to ensure accountability, which the party said had eluded the country's governance system in the past 7 years. That, it said, was necessary to avoid subjecting the citizenry to further untold hardship following the disturbing revelations at the ongoing proceedings of the Public Accounts Committee. It goes on and on. This was at a press conference dubbed Moment of Truth. And there was a quote in there: the Ghanaian public was taken aback by these disclosures, which add to the never-ending list of corruption scandals that continue to plague the nation. So those quick stories for your reflection, and then we can just look at some international stories and say goodbye to the Daily Graphic newspaper.
Then on the issue about the new finance minister urging GRA to push to exceed their revenue targets, I think we should proceed cautiously to meet and exceed these targets responsibly without overburdening the taxpayer. Right. If I recall correctly, it seems that last year GRA exceeded its revenue targets as well. And with the aggressive stance the GRA has taken with revenue mobilization, especially when it comes to taxation, it would have been outrageous if they didn't collect a significant amount, you know. I think, though, that expanding revenue mobilization without raising taxes can be achieved. It is feasible through various strategies. First, we need to continue to expand or enhance on tax compliance, you know, which can help increase revenue without the need for higher taxes. We can achieve this by implementing measures such as simplifying tax processes and strengthening enforcement mechanisms, providing incentives for voluntary tax compliance, and also implementing effective monitoring systems, which I believe can also contribute to higher tax revenues. And then I also think we should continue to expand the tax base by bringing more individuals and businesses who don't pay their fair share of taxes today into the tax net. And this can help the GRA meet and exceed its revenue targets. And this can be done by reducing unnecessary exemptions and loopholes, implementing stricter regulations to prevent tax evasion, and ensuring that all eligible taxpayers fulfill their obligations. This is a better way to mobilize tax revenue without overburdening the people with too many taxes. But a key point I want to make here is that we have to do more to encourage or promote economic growth in order to boost revenue mobilization. When the economy expands, businesses thrive, employment increases, and consumption rises, leading to higher revenues for the state through taxes. So implementing policies that foster investment, innovation, and entrepreneurship, all of these can stimulate economic growth and generate additional revenue without the need for higher taxes.
Right.
The government should also continue to explore alternative sources of revenue beyond taxation. And this can include revenue from state-owned enterprises, royalties from our natural resources, and income from private-public partnerships. I think that diversifying revenue sources can reduce reliance on taxes and create new income streams for the government. And I'm of the opinion that GRA can sustain its revenue mobilization effort without overburdening the people with too many taxes.
Right.
And then if they double down on measures to combat illicit financial flows, such as tax evasion, and money laundering and corruption. This can help preserve revenue that would otherwise be lost. So strengthening anti-corruption measures, improving financial intelligence capabilities, and cooperating with international bodies to combat illicit financial flows. This can contribute to revenue mobilization. A better option than taxation, in my opinion, and definitely can help us with our debt restructuring goals and IMF Extended Credit Facility Program.
Let's quickly go on the international front. Africa's flying presidents under fire. I will do the story. Why? Since Kenya's William Ruto and Nigeria's Bola Tinubu became presidents, they have faced similar criticism over their frequent trips abroad. The two men have been the subject of unflattering descriptions. The costs associated with their alleged penchant for air travel often contrasted with tough economic conditions at home. A Kenyan newspaper, The Standard, nicknamed Mr. Ruto the flying president. It said, so great is his love for flying that it appears that he cannot pass up any opportunity, despite pressing domestic demands such as dealing with the high cost of living. Last month, as Mr. Tinubu made yet another trip to Europe, Nigeria's opposition leader, Atiku Abubakar, said on social media that Nigeria did not need a tourist-in-chief. He criticized the president's private visit while Nigeria was drowning in the ocean of insecurity. On the back of that, some have called for Bola Tinubu's resignation. And I cannot talk about the current Nigerian president and the current Kenyan president without talking about the current Ghanaian president as well, because he's also had that penchant for traveling, sometimes luxuriously in the air. And you ask yourself, I don't get it. You know, you come from, I had to say, and so about life. You understand? You don't have money to feed your family, yet you want to be in a three-piece suit or an agbada that is in, and you are looking shepherd outside, but inside you don't get Afoko, like we need veranda. That's the typical case of African presidents. And the contrast, because these countries they go to, sometimes you would look at the vehicles that the creme de la creme, the presidents and prime ministers and the rest come in from there. And you contrast it with the vehicles we use here. And you ask yourself, are these people really poor? Actually, we're not poor. We have the resources. The president was right when he said, Yeti Sikaso. But for that Sika to trickle down to the ordinary man, that's one, just maybe at the second coming of Jesus. African presidents, I give up. Anyway, on page 9, Pope prays for peace in Sudan and two others, and UK nears agreement on cooperation with EU border force. If you have any reflection very quickly before we get into the other papers. We have limited time. Doc?
To be frank with you, as far as the president's travel is concerned, I don't have much comments on that, but it's rather unfortunate. We spend so much money to travel, and we have our future leaders, the students, peoples. I've seen a documentary by JoyNews where some of our peoples are studying in classrooms where they don't have demarcations. So all the classrooms are just straight up, right? If one teacher is teaching, the other kids can also hear, even though they are not in that class. And they are in classes where there are cemeteries, there are goats and livestock being raised all around them. And yet still we have money for lavish travel. That is, only God can save us.
All right.
Short comment.
Let me get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper very quickly. And right on the front page, the banner headline, you would see Mr. Digital, or should I say Dr. Digital there, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, at Tap and Go digital platform launch. And of course, everything digital, you know, it's Dr. Bawumia. So government procures 100 electric buses to enhance metro mass transit operations. And he has that digital card he's displaying out there. And that has been the thrust of his campaign so far. Digitalization. In fact, digitization. That has been the campaign. General election date change from December 7 to November, not feasible this year. And Dr. Bosman Asari, my former lecturer, my former head of department, and I had a bit of an interaction with him yesterday. He was at our election HQ launch at the Accra Metropolitan Assembly's HQ, and he did say this. So he said that, listen, it's not feasible this year to shift from December 7th to November 7th. So it's going to be December 7th. And the other thing he said, indelible ink, there had been a lot of talk about it. He said that the EC felt, since its biometric whatever systems were able to ensure that no one would vote twice, they felt they could do away with it. But they had listened to the Peace Council, CSOs, the media, the generality of the public, and so they will just add it as another layer. And that gave me a lot of relief. You don't want unnecessary tension where none ought to be had. So those are the stories there. NDC will investigate, prosecute $12 million expenditure on botched Ejapa royalties deal. So details of that in there. Quick thoughts before we go?
And it's a good thing to note how the Vice President is championing the expansion of the nation's digital efforts across various sectors.
Right.
The latest being the stop and go in the public transport sector. Digitization is the order of the day due to the efficiency and cost to both businesses and customers. And various sectors, including the financial services sector, such as the banks, and now the transportation sector, have largely jumped on this bandwagon for obvious reasons. But we need to see this thing in a different light, right? I think expanding digital service could be a game changer and should involve implementing strategies and initiatives, to increase the adoption and usage of digital applications or services. We need to first consider infrastructure development, ensuring that the necessary infrastructure is in place to support digital platforms. And I'm talking about robust internet connectivity, secure digital platforms, and reliable payment systems. Hopefully, tap and go will work every time and will be secure enough for people to use. We need to continue to collaborate with technology partners and also invest in upgrading digital infrastructure, like I said, to provide that seamless and secure digital experience. There should also be customer education and awareness for folks to better understand and appreciate the benefits and convenience of these efforts to digitize the economy. I think that to see more success, we need to conduct more of this awareness. A lot of the people that are taking these buses, not all of them are educated. And so they need some kind of hand-holding. And it's critically important that we also take into consideration the cybersecurity impact. There can never be a reliable digitization without focus on cybersecurity.
All right. The Daily Guide newspaper, SML sues Fourth Estate Manasseh for 10 million Ghana cedis. Let's share global pie, Akufo-Addo says so. But if the global pie were to be shared, would it trickle down? 2024 elections, Bawumia chairs MPP campaign, Nana Kufuor advises. Mahama's 24-hour economy, mere slogan. That's according to Jinapo. You see, I keep saying our politicians keep missing the point. When Akufo-Addo spoke about free SHS and all of that, a lot of people leapt at it, latched onto it, and then he was being teased. And the more people spoke about it, the more fire it actually gathered among the people. I see same happening with the 24-hour economy. And I don't get why people don't realize that the more you try to attack it, just like in the past with free SHS, there are some policies, right? Leave them be. Feed into it. The vice president is also feeding into a 24-hour economy, but moving at it more from the angle of mobile money interoperability and all of that. So if you're denigrating a 24-hour economy, what are you saying about the vice president himself, who is, I don't know what thinking goes into some of these comments. And back then, people said free SHS. Oh, it's a mere slogan. I don't like how it's been executed. Today, children go into, and I'm saying this from what I know, I have seen, not hearsay. People are going to school, some of our young ones, and if you're going to take porridge, you need to bring your own sugar and bread. What is that? What is that? We've had institutions, about 3 of them that I've heard, 1 in the central region, 2 in the greater Accra region, is it, that don't have light on the back of some of all of these issues. So what are you saying? It's a good thing with some bottlenecks. But if you come and say it's a mere slogan, was free SHS a mere slogan? Anyway, EC postpones November elections. That story there on the back of what Dr. Bosman Asari said. And then Otoado set for Black Star's return. Guess what? We hear he just might get the job again. So those stories there. And then I'll do the new finder. After these stories, you give me your reflections and we are gone in 1 minute. Hotels Association surprised at Dr. Awal's exit, and they feel it would have been good to maintain him. Dan Botre leads Dr. Baumia's campaign. I mean, these stories, the same ones we've already looked at. The graphic business, new finance minister under pressure, calls on him to remove nuisance taxes. But the point is, can he? Dare he, in fact, under an IMF program? Oforiatta's exit won't affect debt treatment talks. Alcohol, tobacco, narcotics drive January inflation. And Kalasem now acting MD of Cowbank. Final thoughts in a minute, and we have to go.
So, Ben, let me touch quickly on the 24-hour economy item. I think this could be definitely a game changer for Ghana, especially if implemented very well. You know, in a 24-hour economy, various sectors such as retail, hospitality, transportation, healthcare and entertainment are all available and accessible at any time, catering to the needs and preferences of individuals who require services beyond regular working hours. And this concept, Ben, is recognizing the evolving lifestyle and demands of modern society, where people may have different work schedules or simply prefer to engage in activities during non-traditional hours. Right. So my thought is that this, like I said, it could be a game changer for the nation. However, we need to leverage lessons from other countries and cities where 24-hour economy is being run or developed. New York City, famously known as the city that never sleeps, is not only a cultural hub and a tourist magnet, but also it is a thriving 24-hour economy.
Right.
And one of the key indicators of the success of New York City's 24-hour economy is the abundance of employment opportunities it creates. You know, according to recent statistics, the city's nighttime economy employs over 300,000 individuals. A report by the Center for Urban Future reveals that New York City's 24-hour economy generates nearly $50 billion in annual wages and contributes about $35 billion in total economic output. Right. That fuels the city's financial stability. You know, I could go on and on. In Asia, we see Shanghai, you know, in China.
I mean, there are so many examples. I mean, the Big Apple is a prime example, New York, but you can go to Tokyo, you can go to Sydney in Australia, you can talk about even London itself. There are so many countries that are, and I've done this in my blunt thoughts in the past, so it's clear that it's something that we can do. And you see, people think when you say 24-hour economy, then you're just sticking to, then it's the NDC. No, it can be implemented by any party or any person who becomes president. So it's an idea. It's a conception that we can actualize. It's not about Mahama or Bawumia. It's a good idea. That's what we're looking at. It's not about, it's the NDC, so it's a bad idea, or it's the MPP, so it's a bad idea. And that's what I don't get. That's what we don't get. But thank you, Doc, for sharing your thoughts with us. We have to go now. It's always refreshing catching up with you every Tuesday. But right before we go, right before we get into sports, of course, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us to bring you this segment. And they're offering you free prostate screening if you're a man, free fertility screening if you're a woman. Just reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra, at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Krono Mabwe here, behind the Angel Educational Complex. The Stakradi Energy State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and the Siama and Zima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. If you're celebrating your birthday today, we love you. We celebrate you. Happy birthday. On that note, let's settle for sports. Up next.
Good morning. Let's do sports now on the AM show with me, Muftao. Nabila Abdullahi, and we are just a few days to the start of the African Games 2023. One of the sporting disciplines that will participate in the Games is cricket. However, the cricket oval in Achimota appears to be far away from completion, as seen by my colleague Razak Musbao, who visited the facility and came through with this report.
In a boon for the sport on the continent and the Ghana Cricket Association in particular, cricket is all set to make its debut in the 13th edition of the multi-sport games slated for March this year in Accra. It is part of the 25 sports and disciplines that have been confirmed to feature in the games. The inclusion of the sport, which came after a successful pitch by the ICC Africa team in 2022 during their visit to the local organizing committee, has brought much excitement and enthusiasm to many lovers of the sport. Mr. Kwame Asare is the president of the Ghana Cricket Association.
To be honest with you, I am in cloud nine because I don't think I've seen anything of this stature before. And I think it's history in the making for cricket, and I'm overly excited about this thing.
16 teams consisting of a men and women's team from 9 countries, including South Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Namibia, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, and Ghana will participate in the T20 cricket tournament. Meanwhile, the Achimota Cricket Oval, which will host the games, is far from ready.
This is where the action is going to be taking place, the Achimota Cricket Oval. And there are 2 fields here. There's Oval A and there is Oval B, which is on my right. Now, work is not entirely complete at this ground. The road, the inner road to be precise, is still underway, and you can see the contractors busily trying to get the road done. And from what I pick is that this should be completed in a week or 2 from now. As you can see, the plastering is still ongoing at the Oval B, and at the Oval A you can see that work is also busily underway over there. It is far from complete, to be very frank with you, very far from complete. There's still electrical works to be done. There's still offices that needs to be fixed. But according to the president of the Ghana Cricket Association, Mr. Kwame Asare, all of these should be completed, fully completed, before the games begin.
Yes, what you've seen here is work that has been done over at least the past 2-3 months. And the rate at which is going, we are hopeful that the contractor will deliver, as he says. So we are here day and night, hoping that everything is put in place for us to be part of the African Games. And I'm hopeful that just as he says, we'll be able to complete the thing on schedule for the games to start.
The playing field is the key component of this entire facility, because this is where the actual action will be taking place. However, even on this field, the actual action takes place just a few meters away from me. The raised part of the field, pretty much the center area, that's where the action really does take place. And according to the groundsmen that I've spoken to, they say that actual part of the field is ready and games can begin. The challenge, however, is the outer area, and that's just all the area here, where inclusive of where I'm standing. They say it is not completely ready yet. A lot more irrigation needs to be done, and it's a bit bumpy and needs to be leveled. And according to Fongai, who's a Zimbabwean working with the team here in Ghana, all of that work should be done before the games do begin.
Where we are right now, I can give this ground around 50 to 60%, hoping closer to the games will be around 90 to 95%, just to get it ready, especially on the outfield. It's a bit bumpy. There's just a little bit of rolling that needs to be done, and to try and encourage all this grass to grow a little bit more, so that we get it ready. So I think from where we are right now, 50 to 60% of the work that has been done, I think it's really right in good direction.
Well, while the President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has charged the Sports Ministry and the local organizing committee to ensure they deliver an exceptional All-Africa Games, completing that Achimota Cricket Oval will go a long way to achieving that target. The fields are almost ready. The road is still under construction. The changing rooms and the medical offices and the offices for the officials are still under construction. Work is far from complete, and the assurance remains that all of this will be done before the games do complete. For Joy Sports, my name is Razak Musbah.
Now let's talk Olympic qualifiers. Ghana will be coming up against Zambia on February 23. One of the new players who have been invited to be part of the Black Queens as they seek to qualify to Paris 2024 is Frida Eyise. She plays for Charlton in England. She says that she believes this is the right time to switch nationality and play for Ghana. There's more in this report by my colleague Lawrence Bedu.
The Black Queens regroup for the two fixtures against Zambia. One player people will be looking forward to is Charlton Athletic midfielder Frida Eyise. The former Arsenal player has been given a maiden call-up to the Ghana senior women's national team for the upcoming third-round Olympic Games qualifiers. She makes the switch to represent Ghana after playing for England earlier in her career. Eyise believes the timing is now right to wear the colours of the West African side.
It's a great achievement. I can't wait to play with the girls. I'm looking forward to it. I could have been playing for Ghana earlier, but I felt like now was the right time for me to play for Ghana. It's just a personal decision, a personal choice. And I've decided to do it now, and I think it's the right moment for myself.
The 29-year-old recounts how a visit from head coach Nora Huptel during the latter part of the 2022-23 season played a role in her decision to be part of the team.
I want to say starting from last season, the end of last season, we started getting things into place. The head coach came and watched one of my games, and then we kind of went on from there really, and then we're here now. I've been selected for Ghana.
Under the Swiss trainer, the Black Queens have had a near-perfect record, losing just one of their 11 games since she took over in 2023. In that period, there have been 10 wins for the team with a staggering 34 goals scored, while they have conceded just twice. Eyise believes Ghana has a good team and she's hopeful adding her quality could spark the team to their first ever appearance at the Olympics.
Hopefully I can just add more strength to the team and we can just win games. That's the focus, that's the aim. Just to take each game at a time and hopefully qualify for the Olympics.
From her freestyling videos on social media, the UK-based midfielder will be one to keep an eye on when Nora Huptel's side take to the Accra Sports Stadium on February 23. With 1 goal and 1 assist in 5 starts for the promotion-chasing Charlton Athletic, Eyise will hope her first assignment with the Black Queens is one that she can remember for long.
And the Black Queens comes up against Zambia at the Accra Sports Stadium. So you would want to go there and throw your weight behind the Queens as they seek to qualify to the Olympic Games. This will be the first time Ghana would be competing in the Olympic Games if the Queens are able to secure a ticket to the competition. Let's talk Black Stars. And media reports have suggested that Otto Addo is at the verge of returning as head coach of the senior national team. Otto, who assisted Milovan Rajvac between September 2021 and February 2022 before taking over the role as head coach in the World Cup qualifiers playoff against Nigeria, where he secured the ticket for Ghana to participate in Qatar 2022, is believed to have won the hearts of the select committee that was put together by the Ghana Football Association Executive Council to get a replacement for Chris Hughton, who was sacked by the football governing body after Ghana's woeful showing in the African Cup of Nations last month. Chris Hughton replaced Otto Addo in February 2023 and was fired by the Ghana Football Association in January 2024 after Ghana exited the African Cup of Nations 2023 groups stage with just 2 points out of a possible 9. And media reports say that Otto Addo is believed to be the man who is likely to return, and Michael Essien could be his assistant, as well as Asamoah Gyan being part of the technical team of the new look Black Stars setup. Joy Sports, however, cannot independently verify these reports. When we do, we'll share that with you in our subsequent bulletins. And on Friday, some schools will be assembling in Accra to test the facilities being put together for the African Games. The Ghana Athletics and the Ghana Education Service, they have invited some 50 second cycle institutions to come together for this event. And these are the schools in Ashanti region invited, and they have confirmed their participation. We have Kumasi Technical Institute, Opoku Wari Senior High School, Islamic Senior High School, Konongo Odumasi Senior High School, St. Louis Senior High School, T.I. Ahmadiyya Senior High School, and Osei Senior High Senior High School, Charlie. I apologize for the pronunciation of the name. And Adisadel College, St. Augustine College, Mfansepim Senior High School, Edinaman Senior High School, Biriwas Technical Institute, and Swedru Senior High School. These are the schools from Central Region that have confirmed their participation in the National Invitational Students Athletics Championship. For Eastern Region, these are the confirmed schools: Pope Jones Senior High School, Ghana Senior High School, Koforidia Senior High Technical. There's also Ekwapimam Senior High School, St. Paul Technical Institute, and Ekwanta Technical Institute. Akwetia Technical Institute. For Greater Accra, they have got the huge numbers of schools that are coming. Presbyterian Boys Secondary School, Accra Academy, Achimota Senior High, West Africa Senior High, Laboni Senior High, Tema Secondary Schools, St. Thomas Aquinas Senior High School, Medina Technical Institute, Odogono Senior High School, Accra Technical Training Center, Tema Technical Institute, and New Century Technical Institute in Dansoma. So these are the schools that have confirmed their participation so far in the National Invitational Students Athletics Championship that will be happening at the Legon Stadium. The marking of tracks will begin later this week, and they are expected to complete by Thursday, Friday for the event that will be happening.
Welcome back on the AM show. Right before we get into our big interview, we have a conversation this morning with Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He's a political scientist, also director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. He's a watcher of the political space, and it all has to do with the NPP naming its campaign committees, national campaign committees. Let me quickly usher in Dr. Asah-Asante. Good morning, Doc. All right, so we'll get into the details shortly, but of course, we have a statement from the NPP. We'll just try to get into that. It says, for immediate release, it's dated the 19th of February 2024, New Patriotic Party constitutes national campaign committees. And the NPP, at its National Executive Committee and National Council meetings held on Monday, February 19, approved a proposed structure for the party's 2024 national campaign and appointed some individuals to serve on the various national campaign committees. A national campaign coordinating committee, which shall oversee the work of all other committees, shall be chaired by the 2024 presidential candidate and assisted by the vice presidential candidate. The national chairman, general secretary, and regional chairpersons shall also serve on the National Campaign Coordinating Committee. And then it talks about the advisory committee. That's at the helm of affairs. And foremost on the list, His Excellency John Ejekum Kufuor. There's also His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. All members of the National Council of Elders, the Right Honourable Freddie Blay, Madam Elizabeth Ohene, Reverend Joyce Ayi, and Honourable Akosua Frema or Parry. Interesting there, Reverend Joyce Ayi. Anyway, then campaign operations, Justin Cudjoe Frimpong as director and Henry Nana Boakye as a deputy. Then we go on to campaign chairman and strategist. You would have there the Honourable Dan Boche assisted by Frederick Oware and Nana Akumia as deputies. Then the campaign management, Frederick Opariansa as campaign manager, Dr. Chibudako, deputy research and administration, Honourable Osei Bonsu, Amwa parliamentary campaign, and Dr. Anyas presidential campaign as well. Electoral affairs, no new name. Peter McMano is there. Then the senior campaign aides, engineer Kwabene Japong. We know him. He wanted to be president as well. He contested in the presidential primary or the presidential campaign slot. Mr. John Buedu. Then there's Kofi Jamesi, Susan Allo, Salifu Said, Samuel Ewuku, or Samuel Ewuku as we know him, Anthony Kabo, Dr. Befi, and Ni Ajay Sowa. Then campaign coordinators, Joseph Cudjoe, who is coordinator for identifiable groups. He's been a minister. Mavis Hawa Kumsin for the coastal zone coordination. Dr. Friye, Middle Belt Zone coordination. And then Dominic Nitewo to coordinate the northern sector. Now, just to wrap with the spokespeople for the presidential candidate, there's Dr. Gideon Boako. I saw other names, but then when it comes to the campaign communications directorate, there's Dennis Miracles Abwaje. He is director of communications. Mr. Abdomako Befi is deputy. Mr. Khomeini is deputy, and Mr. Krobia Kwabena Asante will deal with coordination on social media. It goes on and on. Dr. Mutaka fundraising, Dr. Mensa research. But let me bring in Dr. Asa Asante. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Ben.
Good to have you join the conversation. Now, that's quite a list that we have there from campaign coordination. Those are the very helm of affairs, the advisory committee, including the National Council of Elders, and then former President John Ejekum Kufuor, together with current President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, among others. Now, I know you've taken a look at this list. What on face value does it evince, does it reveal to you?
Good morning, Ben, once again, and good morning to your listeners and viewers. If you look at the list, there's no doubt in my mind that these are men and women of substance in the game of campaign. You cannot wish away the ability of President Kufuor in election campaign. And you cannot say, we can say same for President Akufo-Addo because they've all prosecuted campaign before, won elections, at least on 2 occasions and all that. Apart from them, if you look at some of the members, they are, alive to every aspect, every strategy, everything that is important in campaign. Take, for instance, Dan Boche. He is a towering personality in the area of election campaign and election monitoring and all that. Talk about other, men and women within the team that we have seen. So I have no doubt in my mind that it's a quality team. But it's one thing having the team, and another thing, campaigning effectively. You campaign based on issues. The issues that confront this country are numerous, and this is what the people are going to confront them with. For instance, issue of the economy is one of the important indices of free and fair election. An important barometer for every voter to decide on who he wants to cast his vote, whether NDC or an MPP person or any other party member who want to look at the health of the economy and make a decision out of that. It is their number one consideration. So that's given how far we have come from 2021 up to now. We are going to account seriously for that. If you look at the directive principle of state policy, it says that one of the provisions in there talks about the fact that every part of this country needs their fair share of infrastructure development. And this has been one of the considerations for voters in this country. Have they been able to do enough to warrant a third term in office? This I'm not the one to say. Voters will decide. Issue of corruption, Ghanaians have realized that is one of the pains of this country, for which reason they want any government worth its salt to be able to deal with it. This party's record relative to what the issue I'm talking about is not good enough. And evidence can be found in Transparency International report and that of what Ghana Integrity Initiative. So they have a difficult task of convincing Ghanaians whether they've been able to fight the battle head on. Issue of unemployment continue to remain an albatross around the neck of this government, and the youth who have completed various academic programs are now parading the streets of Ghana and then doing all manner of jobs. That also is a problem worth considering. So there are a host of other considerations that voters take into when they are deciding on who to vote for. So the campaign team, solid as they are, solid as it is, they have a daunting task ahead of them. So we look forward to seeing them navigating their way through this tightrope of political righteousness.
Now, if you look at this list of people, stalwarts, yes, Dan Boche, for example. You look at the former president, John Ejekum Kufuor. You look at some of the names that are mentioned, and with the vice president himself being in the thick of things. In fact, when it comes to the National Campaign Coordinating Committee, the vice president himself is chairing that. But then, are these people, looking at them, taking into account their experience and all that, are these people who can win an election as difficult as the one which the NPP seeks to do in terms of breaking the 8? You've mentioned the economic issues and all of that. Is this a team that can execute that agenda or prosecute it?
If I got your question right, you're trying to find out whether this team will be able to prosecute the agenda of the campaign. Is that the case?
To win an election.
To win an election.
Or to win the crucial 2024 election. That's what I'm saying. It's about breaking the 8. As for winning 2 terms, it's been on the table throughout this Fourth Republican experience. But I'm saying at a crucial moment like this, when the NPP wants to break the 8, is this team, do you feel, capable of executing the task?
They will do their best. But as to whether they will be able to convince Ghanaians as to the things that I've talked about relative to campaign is another thing. I must say, I've not gone to the field to be able to declare that look, this will go this direction or the other. But looking at, information around and piece them together, you can make a sense. And the sense I make that, look, it's one thing having a solid campaign team and another being able to do the work. But you can be as good as anything, but if you don't have the raw material to work with and the tools, then it's a problem. The raw materials and the tools I'm talking about are the issues that confront Ghanaian society. They are the raw material. The tools are the strategies that you are going to employ to get all these things put across to the electorate. They have the tools, the resources, the tools, and the men and the women as well. But the issues are the problems that confront Ghanaians. And if you go around, you hear the stories for yourself. So they need to be able to do a very serious work. It is not going to be easy for them. But hey, they believe that they have something under their sleeve to share. So that's what we are looking forward to.
What then would you say moving forward? Now they have a team. They don't have, in fact, in terms of the National Campaign Coordinating Committee, the vice president chairs it. When he gets a running mate, that person will be the vice chair, and they'll take it from there. What way then will be forward for this group? What do you think would be the next move of the group?
Well, the next move of the group is they have to. By now, I'm sure they have. They've done that. They should be able to have data as to the problems of this country, and I'm sure they have that now. You need that at the national level. You need the data, that is the problems of this country at the national level, at the regional level, and constituency level. And in constituency, you need what I'm talking about, constituency-specific issues. The issues are not the same. So by this time, you should have all the data and begin to disaggregate them and decide where to, throw which one out. Your ability to be able to have this and your ability to be able to develop them into slogans, messages, and the rest of them will also be a function of how you survive within the campaign program.
Maybe before you take leave of us briefly, are there any names in there that surprised you? Any people you felt, that name? I mean, looking at some of them, there's no question. But are there some names you saw and got surprised by with your experience, wealth of experience in following elections?
I see Madam Joyce, a very strong personality.
Right.
He doesn't joke with his ideas and all that. But I'm wondering what he's bringing on board. Yes, because I know he's highly political. But, now in recent times, he has taken very strong position in religious affairs and all that. So I don't know what is it that he's bringing on board to change the dynamics. But there's no doubt about her ability to do everything within her power. But is it religious ideas that he's going to throw out, or what is it? Because he's going to be confronted with the issue of the cathedral and the rest of them. So these are some of the things that await her. But I have no doubt in my mind that he's capable of, navigating a way out. But he's going to be confronted with the issue of the cathedral and the rest of them. That is something that will come up. But she's a very fine intellectual, very fine personality. We saw her days during the AFRC days and the rest of them. She's a very strong personality, there's no doubt. But they have been championing the cathedral agenda, and the cathedral will feature prominently in this election. The answer he's going to give is going to be one of the defining moments for a conversation in that regard.
Well, that is one thing that also left me very surprised, scratching my head a bit. Reverend Dr. Joyce Aye is a mother to me. And of course, I've known her in so I was wondering when I saw her name in there, especially because of some comments and the accusations that have come through. But of course, she's a citizen, and it's her decision to make about where she wants to stand. So obviously, everyone would have to respect that decision. But thank you very much, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, for sharing your thoughts with us, engaging us this morning. Wish you the best of the day, sir.
Thank you.
All right. That is Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He's a political scientist, lecturer at the University of Ghana. He is also head of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. Now, stay with us as we get into our big stories, because up next, there is that engagement with the president of IMANI Africa, and he's in the person of Franklin Cudjoe. I've been sharing, he's been sharing some thoughts with me. Let's find out what he had to say to us. That discussion up next on the AM Show. wherever it is we have to go to get you the most germane interviews, interactions, we do that because we care about you and our national space. And that's why today we find ourselves in the premises, the office of IMANI Africa, and we're going to have an interaction with the president himself, founding president Franklin Cudjoe. He's been gracious enough to have us come here. Mr. Cudjoe, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
The conversation.
Pleasure.
It's really good. It's my first time here with you since you moved.
We are grateful. We are grateful you came.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are talking about everything concerning our national life. But I'd like to start, first of all, I'm sure with think tanks like yours, people from time to time ask themselves, okay, so what do these think tanks even do? I'd like you to walk us through a day in the life of IMANI Africa, your office here. What do you do? And especially in an electoral year, it is crucial in our national life. How are you shaping up to shape ideas and to impact Ghanaian society ahead of the elections?
Well, thank you very much, Benjamin. I think that many people, I'm sure IMANI popularized the term think tank in Ghana. When we got onto the scene, there were other think tanks that were carefully guarded in whatever they say or do, but we took an activist approach, and I suspect that is what has made us a household name. But the word think tank essentially, or think tanks essentially are second-hand dealers in ideas, basically. I mean, what we do, we are played more or less a middleman's role between the academia and then lay people. So we explain technical or technocratic language in such a way that people could understand without interpretation. Even for our friends in the media, could pretty much use without interpretation. That's been the mores, or that's actually the mores of a proper think tank. Not to say that we don't generate original ideas. Of course, we do research as well. But over the last 2 decades, we'll be 20. We are actually 20 this year, by the way. Over the last 2 decades, we carved for ourselves a mission statement that essentially was to subject every and any government project, policy, programs to the rigorous value for money, vested interest analysis, and sometimes, well, what you normally call cost-benefit analysis, and then publicize the results as much as possible for the consumption of many. In fact, we pride ourselves as saying that if you can't explain any government policy in a 1,000-word article, then you have no business being a think tank. And that's been what has been our hallmark from the days when we were publishing in the likes of the Wall Street Journal, the Daily Telegraphs of this world, and indeed almost all the major media in this world we've been on, by the way. Those have been our hallmark. So explaining technical language in such a way, explaining policy that makes it sexier for people to relate. And politicians don't have enough time. So if you are telling them, if you want to impress them, give them a policy position, you don't have to come with, you can do all the 1,100-page policy paper, but they need just a quick read. Yeah. And that is proven, I mean, in our case, it's worked quite well. And that's what endeared us to the country when we came onto the scene, for which the term think tank has been quite popularized right now.
Okay, so it's and you've done exactly that very succinctly. You've put together 20 years of work and how you've impacted Ghana. Right. But especially in an electoral year, you've seen many electoral cycles, presidential, parliamentary, and now we are at a crossroads again. What is going to be the output of IMANI Africa in a year like this? The MPP on the one hand is saying they want to break the 8, which has not happened before in our fourth Republican experience. The NDC wants to have a former president return as president, which has also not happened in our fourth Republican experience. And then there are some other stalwarts who also want to take up this position. But how is IMANI Africa going to help shape ideas in that regard?
Well, we do not care about any of those scenarios at all. In fact, what we care about is what we started somewhere in the year 2008. Also at the time, the NPP wanted to break the 8. Don't forget, Kufuor was the flag bearer at the time. But 2008, we started something called the the business plans of politicians or political parties. We ask the question, what are their business plans? We know that countries are not run like the corporate entities, but you know, the notion that a politician will use your money in order to prosecute an agenda actually means that you must have a say in whatever he does with your money. People can say that the famous issue around the tragedy of the commons, that what belongs to you tend to take care of, but what belongs to everybody tends to fall into disrepair. We thought we could turn that on its head and say that, look, every cedi, every dollar counts, especially if the politician is negotiating on your behalf, borrowing money or raising revenue in the country. Yeah. So what business plans do they have? And essentially what it meant was that we wanted to quantify the promises that they were making. Give us an invoice, give us what I call a pro forma invoice of the things you want to do, the shopping list you want to have, and then use a scale of preference and decide that if you're not going to get the resources that you needed, what was the next line of thing you wanted to prosecute or do, right? That's the mandate we elected or we imposed on ourselves way back in 2008. We then metamorphosed into what we now call the manifesto or the IMANI project, which essentially is to quantify or analyze how feasible political parties' promises really are, because indeed most of what we've heard has not really been helpful. Many people tend to forget that in the course of this constitutional dispensation, it was only Dan Lathe, may he so rest in peace, who happens to have been the only presidential candidate who had a semblance of accounting of how much money he wanted to raise to prosecute his government in the 4-year term, right? At the time, he said he was going to mobilize resources to the tune of $840 billion, which meant that if he had a successful tenure of 4 years, that was going to be $7.2 trillion US, which was going to rival the UK's UK's GDP at the time. So that Ghana would have become the 7th largest economy in the world. Never mind how he was going to raise it or whatever he was going to use the money for, but he had a sense of accounting. Since then, we haven't seen.
He did not have an opportunity to govern the country. Well, those that have had the opportunity,
exactly,
oftentimes don't have anything to show.
Not at all. And we also don't forget that he was the famous promoter of this domestication idea, which essentially meant not just using local resources, but applying critical local thinking to, maximizing local resources. Since then, well, of course, with the exception of another man who said he was going to generate electricity by suspending permanent magnets in the atmosphere. He was a joker, but I thought he had a sense of what he wanted to do. By the way, Chuck Wayo wanted to use his agricultural policy Kofi Wayo was to use the donkey effluence of the donkey. For lack of a better word, the waste material of donkeys as fertilizer to encourage agriculture. So this may sound very funny, but they had a sense of accounting, more or less. Since then, we've never really had. What we had was a festival of spinning, high-octane spin, and a lot of complete nonsense passing off as manifesto promises.
Has that changed?
Well, it changed, and that's where we came in. That's how we came in. You remember, 2016 was the watershed moment, really, when we decided that we're going to up our ante in terms of the quantification of promises. We did not wait for the politicians to actually come give us a document, because they never really are ready until about a few months of the elections, probably 2 months. That's when they collect this wish list into a booklet they call manifestos, and then hand them down and say they've checked the box. What we did was to start tracking them, like you guys do right now. And you, by the way, you do a good work with your blunt thoughts. Let me say that. So what we did was to start tracking the things they kept saying on the campaign platform, the trail. They kept saying this and this and that. And we did what we call the critical analysis project. For the first time, we found out that of the promises that they were making, in fact, the NPP at the time, out of the many 21 or so promises that they had made, about 8 critical promises that they had made at the time, we found out that I think only 1 was quantifiable. And the NDC had probably 2 or 3. And then you get the headliner on the Daily Graphic and Ghan Times saying that promises of politicians are not quantifiable. You can imagine hell broke loose.
I remember a lot of political actors took you on.
Oh yes, I mean, amazing.
We had some of these interviews and they were not at all happy.
No, not at all. But you know, my joy really was that when I heard on Adom FM, and you've got to love this local media stations, by the way. When I heard on Adom FM, one of the journalists asking one of these political propagandists, well, first of all, you said you are going to build dams in villages. By the way, do you know how many villages there are in the country? The guy said, oh, I feel like king kind. Then the next question was, but do you even know the cost? He said, oh, and some of this idea. Then the guy went and said, I say money for Bisase. I mean, where are you going to put all these dams? How many are they? I felt elated because I felt that our work was done. Right? So that's how we came onto the scene of this manifesto thing that we now call more or less like a barometer for legitimacy of promises. And I suspect that that's what we'll do. By the way, we have an excellent relationship with multimedia, obviously led by Evans, and I think we did a lot of good work the last election, and even before then, in this particular enterprise we call the Manifesto Project. We may turn a few things, we pivot a few things around this time around, and what we intend doing this time is actually to ask ourselves, what is the perfect or near perfect country we want to be like? What's the near perfect, highly effective country you want to copy? Because you see, right now, we are in a hole. For the politicians have dug a hole for us. Well, this current crop of politicians have dug this hole, and it appears that almost all reasonable promises or suggestions to come out of it may be politicized. The NDC has got its own blueprint. They want to promote 24-hour here, maybe something else they want to do, maybe 360 degrees. It probably may go to Mars. I don't know yet, but I think that at this juncture, what we need is show us what you want to, how this country should be like. I think John Mahama calls it the Ghana I want to see. Yeah. But so far, the Ghana we want, that sort of thing. But what we want from Imani is we want you to tell us how. I mean, we want to tell us how near perfect a country could be when we look at the likes of the other countries that are doing quite well, right? So, how are you copying the habits of highly effective countries? How is it that how can you grow a GDP of maybe double digits, probably in 2-3 years? It's doable. How is it that how can you basically create a perfect or happy, what I call the happiness index, more or less, for a country? Things that we can quantify and say that by the end of your tenure, if the number of people who had fallen into poverty or hardcore poverty is now about close to 1 million, we want to say that by the end of your tenure, first 4 years, we should have at least maybe half of those people coming out of poverty.
Which also feeds into the SDGs.
The SDGs. Well, again,
in some context,
yes,
because when it comes to water, access to potable water, human rights issues, and what you just mentioned, all of those feed into alleviating, poverty and all.
Exactly, and even how you are going to partner the private sector. For far too long, the private sector has been at the beck and call of political actors, only for the purposes of greasing their elections, but not necessarily as partners in development.
But this administration, for example, has said, touted time and again, the private sector is the engine of growth, but whether the engine is actually kicking is another matter altogether.
Well, it should be the engine of growth. I mean, I have another view. I think the public sector actually should be the engine of growth, because if the public sector gets its rights, the private sector would feel unburdened in order to flourish. Okay. Unfortunately, we don't see a lot of that. As I say, the private sector actors have also just accepted the fact that they will become chronic capitalists, and so they encourage them to steal and then do all these procurement gigs, and it doesn't work. A partnership with the private sector, a decent partnership with the private sector is upon us right now. I see Bawumia claiming that he wants to partner the private sector to do a number of things. I think John has also said something to that effect. Alan has also said something to that effect. But I want to see, or we want to see, a permutation where the private sector, well-resourced, should take over at least 70% of public works. and actually build properly for it. Sometimes we think that if the private sector takes over, they will price out the poor. It's never really happened. As we speak, the poor buy water at higher prices than the rich, as we speak right now. So all these old socialist champagne thoughts that when the private sector comes on board, the poor would be burdened or the poor would become poorer, is unfounded. Of course, in this part of our environment, it can happen because the relationship is not a good one. It is a chronic capitalist one and doesn't endure to the benefit of anybody.
I don't know whether you've cited the Ghana at 100 document, but it's the NDPC's document.
Right.
Maybe you should take a look at it because it also talks about the future Ghana by from 1957 to 2057 after 100 years. And if you look at some of the things in that document, I mean, having a GDP of about, whether nominal or otherwise, of about $3 trillion and all the other things that we aspire to versus where we are, then you realize that it's a long way catching up, even in terms of unemployment statistics and purchasing power parity, among others. But that's a discussion for another day. All these things we're talking about, elections and everything in between, there's a crucial element, the Electoral Commission.
Right.
And some people have railed against the Electoral Commission, others have lauded the Electoral Commission. But from where you sit, with what this crop of electoral commissioners, including the head, G. Mensah, have done, how do you assess them? And there are topical issues. The use of indelible ink being scrapped or taken off. The change of the electoral date. It also sort of coincided with the SDA, I believe, complaining about the fact that they didn't want it to be on that day because it coincided with their day where they worship. What do you think are the dynamics? But let's start with the Electoral Commission proper and their output so far. How do you assess them?
I think it's become legend, and everybody knows now that, personally, I do not have any good things to say about the EC.
The question is why?
The first two things. One, on the cusp of the elections 2020, they denied my people. Don't forget, I'm a native of Sal, and a good one at that. Santo Kofi, Akwafu, Lolobi,
Lolobi.
Right. I'm from Lolobi, Kumasi, by the way. They clandestinely, without, we didn't even see it coming. On the eve of an election, they just sent a note and said, well, my people cannot take part in an election, well, the parliamentary election. No good reasons were given, except, of course, recently in court at home, where one of the officers said, well, they are sorry for what happened. Well, sorry doesn't cut it. As we speak, Jane Mensah and her cohorts have never for once apologized for that particular singular act of what I call, I won't describe it use any other adjective, but that singular act of infamy, disenfranchisement, they've never apologized. And with the backing vocalists in government, the local government ministry, as well as the government itself, no apology, nothing has been done to ensure that particular debacle was actually undone. And we are still in court. The courts also frustrated us for a very long time. The EC, I found out, was just not interested.
What would an apology do? What would the apology do?
Well, the apology probably wouldn't do much, but it could be soothing to the pains of people who have been basically chucked out of chucked out of the map, the Ghanaian, should I call it electoral map or economic map. But I thought that the EC itself has a lot of questions when it comes to procurement. By the way, let me probably leave all of those. It's
interesting you bring up procurement.
Yeah, procurement
because it's the same angle. The devil is, some have said, I spoke to a presidential candidate recently and he made mention of the fact that if we got procurement right, a lot of our problems in terms of wastage would be dealt with in this country. And I agree with him.
Oh, of course.
Dr. Bawumia has said, we will get to his plan for Ghana, but one of the things he said is that he would make public, procurement open contracts so that there will be public scrutiny, among others. We have the infamous issue of Ejeni Mwating Ejei, the former PPA boss, and everything that goes on in there. So, and to add to that, we know that the former EC's chair, Charlotte Osei,
she was
literally taken out on the back of some procurement. So once you bring in procurement, I at least
probably
want you to
listen.
dwell on that for a bit.
If you thought that Charlotte herself was taken out, and at the time we supported that idea as well, that Charlotte had issues and probably needed to go. But if I look at the sins Charlotte was said to have committed against the sins Jean had committed when it comes to procurement, it's like day and night, really. I mean, to think that they threw perfectly working biometric machines away in 2020 to procure new ones, and did so with under very crooked procurement procedures, was quite shocking, astonishing. So we could have saved close to $150 million without having to buy new procurement materials at all. I mean, famously, I remember we looked at some of their procurement, the tendering process, the processes of awarding the contracts, and the marks that were awarded were not in consonance with what ideally should be the arithmetic at primary 2. They calculated 85 plus, was it 85 plus 14 to be 103. And we saw all the shenanigans, all the way the procurement could be rigged, to the extent that the persons who were supposed to be tender committees were not qualified, right? So you are right. When it comes to procurement, the EC is not just, it's just one aspect of the whole enterprise of procurement. But I think substantively, the EC's mandate must be one that says they want to grow with everybody, or they want to organize or supervise elections for everyone and not for a segment of the populace. Often they act as if they are very interested and vested interest referee, right? I mean, this whole idea of the indelible ink. What exactly does it hurt to have that if your biometric machines actually fail on that day? It makes sense. I mean, this whole idea of having elections round up around 3 p.m. I mean, this is not too long ago. I remember the district elections where
I was just about to mention
have all these problems as well. So why would you impose an impossibility for yourself?
But on the other hand, you could say they could set the time at 3 if there's the need to exceed and go to 5 or even later, then they get there, right?
Well, having been known for very capricious decisions, I don't think it is in their interest to be setting these what I call annoying estimates or timelines. Because what you do is just to alienate your the people you work with, and alienate voters. And then what's the point in getting insulted all the time, right? And so I thought that the EC, unfortunately, Jean, who was part of us and civil society, had been a complete turncoat, and it's quite worrying, really.
You feel that when she was with you in civil society, I mean, her utterances and all of that, versus now being electoral commissioner, there's a shade of difference.
And obviously, yes. I mean, and she had no reason not to act the way she was while with civil society, because clearly, what does she really have to lose? Except to say that you apply the very skills that you've catered to or curated while in civil society. But that's what, because for a very long time, most of us in civil society felt she had taken her own path and decided to do whatever she wanted to do. And I think these elections are crucial, and the least they can do is to ensure that there are no problems or challenges. This whole thing about regional collation of votes in itself, I think Farijan said it not too long ago, that it was a completely silly idea, because then that could lead to all kinds of skirmishes like the one that led to the killing of about 7 people who up to now we haven't really had any real, we don't even know who did it, right?
Yeah. So interesting dynamics. I still want us to stay with voting, especially as 2024 is so crucial. And I'd like to go back to the standpoint of the major political parties, the NPP and the NDC, and that is not to denigrate to the other parties, the CPP and the rest. I would have wished that there would be a third wheel, third force, and that maybe there would be some conglomeration of some of these parties, but that has never worked ever since Gusitano and everything else till now. But when you assess the promises that are being made, one more time, and we are looking forward to what you will come through in terms of assessing their practicality or otherwise. former President Mahama, for example, says, I can do with about 60 ministers. You would ask, why not then? Why now? He says he would scrap the e-levy. You could give him that. But how about some of the nuisance taxes, so to speak, from back then? He's even been speaking about our power situation and everything in between. Of course, he did something about that, but that also left a bit of a mess in terms of our debt and all of that. He's proposed a 24-hour economy. On the other hand, you have a Dr. Baumia who now says he's the driver's mate, not the driver, and that he would also scrap the e-levy, take away the 10% betting tax, take away the 15% VAT on electricity if it is still on the books when he comes through, among other proposals, scrapping or making national service optional, public scrutiny of contracts and all of that. When you weigh all of these promises that are being made, left, right, and center, what do you see, and are they real enough? What are you reading between the lines?
Well, politicians will never stop making promises. I think as close as we should be to reality is that whatever promises they are making now must reflect going forward how we unburden or unshackle ourselves from the current economic challenges that we have. Because as we speak, up until 2028, I do not see how we are going to come out of the current hole if the structure of the economy remains the way it is, which means that anybody who wants to really drive this country's economy must be doing so on the back of enterprise flourishing, basically ensuring that enterprises are allowed, given some breathing space to flourish.
But is that a realistic thing to think about? One, government itself has crowded out private enterprise in terms of securing loans from the banks, treasury bills and all of that. And we are also under the stringent hawk-eyed management of the IMF. Is that a reality?
Well, it could be reality if we did a number of things. I mean, reordering the way we organize our governance. I'm not too sure that, I mean, you already started mentioning the examples of what I call enterprise inhibiting factors of double-digit inflation, double-digit interest rate, and what have you. As a first rule, we should not dig any further. I don't think raising interest rates or basically working against what I call the spiral, downward spiral of inflation should be any politician's mantra right now, because that wouldn't help at all. I think enterprise creation and flourishing will be the best thing to look at right now. I do not see any other path. And by the way, by enterprise creation, I do not just mean people who do buy and sell. It also means that investing in the productive elements of the economy, in agriculture, the value chain, making sure that people within the value chain of certain staples really are unburdened. If it is the road network that ought to be fixed, critical road networks must be constructed to places that are of value. I mean, you've heard about railways being constructed to probably nowhere, and I've asked myself, why would you put a railway network if it's only to ferry passengers and not ferry cargo? You should be thinking about something like that. So I like to see a complete reordering of the way we do things, and that means the personnel at the heart of government itself must be quick in thinking as to how valuable they can be to the government. I do not first of all think that the numbers are, of course the numbers are crucial, whether ministerial numbers or people who work at the presidency. I've always said that to fight waste in the system like the ones we have right now, and maybe corruption, which would give us some resources to apply to these other enterprises I've talked about, is actually to start it at the heart of the presidency, because that's where all the waste actually sits. But that presidency must be made of people who are called assessor generals, who can assess essentially what big ticket transformational investments that will be made in any aspect of the economy, and assess how much value will be returned to the economy before it is actually done. So if it is enterprise creation or enterprise flourishing you want to promote, ask yourself, if I reduce taxes for businesses whose annual threshold are about, let's say, 100,000 Ghana cedis or 200,000 Ghana cedis, how am I moving the needle a little bit higher in a way that I think employment could be generated, as well as taxes will be paid for the states to run. I mean, those are the ways I think that we should see development. Right. So the promises are fine, but they have to be they all have to hang together in such a way that you ask yourself, what do I gain by giving off a bit of the tax breaks or tax reliefs to certain persons or certain categories of businesses in order to promote their well-being? How does the economy benefit? How do I ensure that I don't put too much money in Ghana? What do you call it? Is it Ghana Enterprise Agency or the other one, which is youth-led as well? There's the Ghana Enterprise Agency, and then there's the, I've just forgotten the other name. But how, even if you want to invest in such things, how do you do it in such a way that at the end of the day the economy benefits? So promises galore, but if they all do not point to moving the needle in such a way that the economy, we can realistically calculate how much value be added to the economy, all these promises will come to naught really. And I think that so far the whole conversation about partnering the private sector, for me, to unburden the public sector when it comes to critical infrastructure like roads, bridges, even hospitals and schools, could be useful, because once you do that, it frees up a lot of resources that the state would rather not burden the ordinary citizen to undertake. If you can do that alone, you are fine. By the way, the other things you should be thinking about: water, electricity, transportation, and maybe health. If we can find a way of fixing these things, and probably a $2 billion investment into each of these sectors, if you can raise $10–12 billion, you can actually begin to halve the problems of this country and probably help grow the economy in such a way that by 2028 you'd have probably half our problems.
And these things you're speaking of are so crucial. They are the core, at the heart of everything we do. In fact, interestingly, when we started this conversation, you had to talk about your solar system and getting it on because of the fear that maybe at some point during this very interview the lights could go off, would have to stall. That's true. So that's the reality that businesses have to deal with on a daily basis. But going back briefly to the bit about taxes, talk is cheap. And I've said that to these politicians time and again. Talk is cheap. Today I was telling them that you can say all these things, but come to power and do it, and let's see. Now you look at what both people have said, Mahama and Bawumia, about taxes. We'll scrap the e-levy. If you take Dr. Bawumia, for example, and all the taxes he says he will scrap, you are considering about 5.9 billion Ghana cedis under an IMF program. The question is, where is he going to get the money to fill the gap, to plug the gap? So, and I've heard Samuel Cudjoe recently on my show told me that they would actually present a private member's bill in Parliament to push the Vice President to actually come through on that promise, to go ahead. I mean, since you are projecting it, why not do it now? You get it. Is that something that you think is practical and is the way to go to maybe show commitment?
I think beyond that, really. I mean, I see people being very skeptical about politicians and their promises. And I think I've heard the Guta president even suggest that he needs a social contract with Bawumia, for instance, who has now asked that certain taxes will be taken off. He needs a social contract, some sort of a grand ceremony. Right? Yeah, that will sign off. Yeah, it was being said.
And not just him. He says all these leaders who are coming. So whichever one of you comes, will hold you to.
So this time, no Antoa, no swearing, nothing. Just come and sign ceremony. Everybody is captured. You swear that you don't have to swear. You only sign and say, "I'll make sure that I introduce flat taxes." By the way, I think we need an optimal tax regime. And by that, what do I mean? Essentially, what are the things government ought to do? We need to come to that conclusion or realization and ask ourselves, what do we really want our governments to do for us? Do we want our government to do free SHS and then create what I call refugee status in most of our campuses? Is that what we want? Or we want a partnership with parents, so that parents can pay a bit of it? What exactly do we want our governments to do? Do we want our government to keep on building hospitals or build roads without tolling them? Or the private sector should do that? Once we answer this question properly, even prisons could be built by the private sector and probably managed better. I would certainly, if prisons were said to be sold today, I'll look for money to buy. And I'll give people wonderful experiences as prisoners. I'm sure they will love to, but you don't have to commit crimes.
You don't create a system where people are actually eager to go to prison.
Yes, but you see, you don't have to commit certain crimes to come into my prison, by the way. But just to say that what are things do we want governments to undertake? Once we know that, then we can say, I want to raise X amount of money to prosecute my development agenda. You just mentioned 5.something billion. Question is, I see this whole conversation about taxation. We can reduce it to this flat tax revolution. I'm a huge supporter of the flat tax revolution, by the way. I was on a panel with the former Estonian Prime Minister when we spoke about...
There's been a lot of talk about...
Oh yes, Estonia. And I remember those times, yes, we were discussing how countries could build bulwarks against poverty and all of that. And I remember very well when Maternal, his name was, mentioned that this is what he did for his country at the time. This flat tax thing cures so many other things. So VAT, input, output nonsense gets stopped. You actually graduate the tax, the flat tax. So you do it 3%. And even this flat tax thing goes back, way back in Ghana, to my conversations with the late Finance Minister Barredo. We're traveling to his village somewhere, I've forgotten what year it was, I think 2000, and I remember the year. I was then chaperoning Garfield High School, a technology school based out of Seattle. We're building computer labs in the country. So when he was education minister, we were traveling to most of these centers, technical institutes, to go and see and establish computer labs. And then we saw women who were selling oranges, and we stopped and basically wanted to buy and started asking them questions. And they started lamenting about their problems. They don't sell much, it gets rotten, and then the people come and collect lampo duties and all of that. So when we got into the car later, we got talking, and I said, well, you know, these people could be helped by, first of all, the tax or the tolls have to be determinate. They should be, people should know that this is the amount it is. It's not wavy, you don't change it all the time. It should be graduated. Well, thankfully, when he became finance minister, one of the first things he did was to actually introduce flat tax for businesses whose threshold were up to about 10,000 Ghana cedis at the time, 3%. So it's not new. What Boamia is suggesting could be done and could help unburden us from all this VAT nonsense, which gets all these VAT collectors go and have arrangements with entrepreneurs and pocket some of the money. We don't need that.
And even now, you're literally paying about 20% on, I mean, you're purchasing something close to 200 cedis and you are spending about 40 cedis in taxes.
Did you say 40 cedis? About 60 cedis?
Well, it maybe depends on where
crazy.
you are, but it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You make a purchase and you look at the tax component, and we are even asking why we're still paying a COVID-19 levy.
But you ask yourself, how much of that does the government really need? If the government can stop doing very stupid things, like obviously giving off freebies to people who do not need it.
Tax waivers among others.
Well, look, can you imagine this administration in its dying days is giving 12.5 billion cedis, 12.5 billion cedis in tax exemptions to what the opposition has called its cronies. And possibly true. When you think that they are trying to raise only 11 billion Ghana cedis, why would you want to organize a country like that? So it tells you that if we sat back carefully and look at what government should actually be doing, we'll be cutting back a whole lot more, and the private individual would be better off rather than the politician.
Let's make the most of the next maybe 7 to 8 minutes. I'd like to focus on 3 things: the reshuffle, saving Ghana sports. There was a demonstration recently, and I'll save the last one because I want to spring that at the end. But reshuffle, and I saw you put up a post on social media in respect of this. You said, let me just get to it. There it is.
No, I can remind you.
The former finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is to be appointed as the senior presidential advisor on the economy. He will also serve as the president's special envoy on international investment and the capital markets, according to, well, their sources, meaning he will be in charge of negotiating most big deals. He is now bigger than the Ministry of Finance. How did you come by this assertion?
Well, first of all, the president typically would not give reasons as to why he's appointing people. I heard my good friend Japan Mesa say that he thought his appointment was based on regional balance. I don't know what that means. I don't even understand what it means. But particularly for the finance minister, it's instructive. if many people hadn't seen this particular newsreel or this story from Asasi, we would have concluded that I was just making it up. But to be said to be the presidential advisor on the economy is one part. You can say that he still has experience, so he can be advising.
International
but
investment.
But now to be the envoy for international investment and capital markets, for someone who cut his teeth in capital markets, played a role in, basically that's how his life has been about. And to think that he's been given the role of what? An envoy when it comes to international investment, essentially means almost all the deals that Ghana would ever get into, create or explore or welcome, he would have a say in it. International investment, probably bigger than GIPC, right? Now, it also means that the finance ministry would have, before they ever get to sign off any deal, Oforiatta would have to go through him. If we decide to go to the capital market at some point, I don't see that happening anytime soon, by the way. But in a supposedly whatever presidency of Bawumia, assuming he still has space and he still has this position in government, he is likely to be the person who will say even what rates we should negotiate when it comes to getting onto the Eurobonds.
And we know the devil is in that detail. The devil is in the details. Are reflected who gets what, when,
exactly,
and how.
Exactly. So I see it as a much bigger role. And what's the point really? Being the public and being insulted for putting together a budget you have no control over, right? Or going to the IMF for which you'll be insulted. I'd rather be the mafia don and sit back and then play the chess.
What, the mafia don?
Yes,
you
that's
think
what he is.
That's what Ken Oforiatta is going to be now?
Godfather, actually.
I see. The mafia don, Godfather. These are, you know, these are not pleasant terms, right?
Oh, no.
They are someone is referred to as a mafia.
Euphemistically positive. I mean, they are not pejorative.
Euphemistically positive.
Not pejorative at all. I think I'm trying to say that he's a grandmaster. He's been given an opportunity to do this. Maybe the president has been the cleverest of all of us, really, in making sure he fashioned the role for him. A part of me feels Oforiatta still has something useful for this country, and it appears that at this juncture the president finds him very good when it comes to raising international capital, for which he will make him an envoy for international investment and most important capital markets. Mark those words, those capital
markets. And I
don't forget the finance minister wanted to float a 50 billion century bond.
Yeah.
He had that much appetite for the capital markets. So now that he's been made an envoy for that, those boys at the ministry are just guru boys. In papers. He's the real don.
Are you suggesting that Dr. Amin Adam is not going to have a free hand? That basically...
Oh, no, not at all.
Ken Oforiatta is still going to be large and in charge?
Not at all. In democratic centralism, Amin will still speak and say everything he wants to say. But when it comes to...
behind the scenes, the real decisions when they are to be made, are you saying he will not be...
Yeah, but once you've crafted this particular rule, what it means is that whatever decision the government will take, assuming this government was going to travel another 2-3 years, essentially, before any decision is done, actually signed, Amin will have a say, maybe signed somewhere there, but before that signature you see, there's Oforiatta who will say, this is the way we ought to go. So that's what it is. Let's not kid ourselves. Otherwise, why create a role in the first place?
Right, but is that necessarily a problem?
Maybe not, but I'm just giving information and saying that once you say someone is actually gone, he's really not gone, and this time he's rather much more influential than you thought he was not going to be.
Let's quickly focus, just briefly, on some of the other appointments. Are you enthused by any? Dr. Cudjoe, former Deputy Health Minister, now he's going to be the substantive, the Deputy Information Minister. At least that's refreshing. Well, a female is now going to take over from Cudjoe Nkrumah, who's moving to another ministry, I believe works on housing. You have Henry Quartey now becoming the Interior Minister designate. Ambrose Derry moving to become a Minister of State at the presidency, among others. Dakwa Newman coming through gender. I mean, there are so many of them. Lydia Al-Hassan is in now.
I mean,
any that excite you?
Collectively, they would add no value to the economy, which is what I think about a lot. Because once they settle, 6 out of 9 of these ministers, by the way, nominees, are going for re-election. And by the time they settle in their positions, they would have to spend, that would be somewhere March, and then by the time the elections are upon us, probably in August, they'll start planning to get get their seats back. They have just 4 or 5 months in the row. What value would have been added, right? But as individuals, a few of them obviously are quite stellar. I mean, Okoboy, having been a deputy director of what's it called, Health and Chebi somewhere, came to Kolebu, NHI, and he was being a deputy minister of health before.
In fact, before he lost his seat, and then
he's an excellent brain and head and hands, no doubt about that. I don't know what much he's going to do between now and then. But
wouldn't you prefer him to a Kweku Adjumamenu who led us to a crisis when it came to COVID-19 vaccines, who led us to a crisis when it comes to, for the first time I heard, vaccines for children and so many other instances, and even the cost.
Yeah, understood. But I'm just looking at what value addition within these few months really would have happened. Nothing to do with the abilities of Okoboy at all.
So it's about the time. There's no time for him to do anything.
Can he do? Except, of course, maybe he can do something he himself talks about when it comes to exporting nurses and doctors abroad, which he thinks will be a significant value foreign exchange for the country. But even that has to be within the broader policy of government. So for me, the reshuffle did not cut it. The part of the reshuffle that I thought should have happened was a realignment and measures, a cutback of the ministries. By the way, people suggest if the president had done that, then Bawumia would have nothing really to be promising people, because the president would have started doing it anyway. Right. Which makes me think that Bawumia now has to tell us exactly how his 15-member ministerial whatever portfolio would look like. Because that is useful, including John Mahama, who says 60.
Yes.
Benjamin, please, let's elect upon ourselves to start asking questions. The caliber of persons these two gentlemen and even the Alan camp would actually deploy. Alan claims that his budget for 2025 is already ready. Right. I like to see it. Right. But it tells me that he's probably serious. I like to know the personnel. Because one of the things we should never lose sight of is the fact that the people, the caliber of persons, maybe they will not come from Mars, but we need to know who they are right now before we even start the elections. Because if we don't know that, we don't want surprises. We don't want the president who will say, for me, I don't want to be disturbed, and so I'm going to appoint minions and all of that. I want to see action. I want to see real persons who we can start asking questions as to what they are adding to the economy. Not just because there's an euphoria that, well, somebody will be kicked out, somebody else will come. No. Otherwise, we'll come back to the same position we are currently in, and it will not help us.
So the final bit of the conversation, 2 quick points, maybe in 2 minutes if you can manage it. 1, save Ghana sports. Save Ghana football and by extension Ghana sports. For me, for the life of me, I can't understand why we're not pumping more into other sports and essentially also into women. Look at the Black Queens and the princesses and what they attain or achieve for Ghana, even at the club level, Hazakes ladies among others. And look at the men and what they get. Yet we keep pumping more money in there, and the question is why? Who gets what? And why are they doing this? So that's one. I'm sure you're a lover of sports. The second, just so you can lump them together, Kofi Bento, your colleague, has been saying some things lately. I heard him on Newsfile, and it appeared he was in some hot waters at a point. I've seen what you've put out there, but how do you feel? He's a member of your team, and he's lending ample support to one candidate, Dr. Bawumia.
Okay, so on the sports, I think when I heard that the Stars were going to camp in South Africa initially, when the tournament was next door, I asked myself, have we learned lessons at all? What's the point? People are coming all over to acclimatize themselves from up north and south, closer to the tournament. And so they listened to the public and they decided to come somewhere. I forgot where they camped, but it was in Ghana, right? Then I heard the next thing, they spent $3 million in preparation.
Yeah, recently, that's what we've been told.
The AFCON prize is $7 million, right? I mean, how do you spend 3 million? I don't know what they did. I don't know whether they were buying gourmet meals.
I don't know whether it wasn't 7.5 or something like that, but I
well, that's what they said they budgeted, 8 million. Right. But so far they spent $3 million.
No, I'm talking about the AFCON prize. That's what
it's 7 million actually,
right.
And all of that.
Right.
I think Ghana sports is just it's basically synonymous to or with politics, the way we organize things as well. I was a bit...
is Ghana sports corrupt?
You know, frankly, I can't tell. I haven't caught anybody in the act. I feel a few people at the GFA are persons I know who are professionals. The vice president of the GFA, for instance, as I understand and know, is an astute professional when it comes to... And I thought that once they had him in there, he probably was going to help reorganize the whole thing. It appears he's been... not necessarily in him, but I suspect he's been overpowered by the demons, as always, where they are always there, and all of that.
Demons, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't Bamiao described corruption as demons. Yeah, so it's unfortunate. But, well, on Kofi Bentil, I like to say that, you know, in the spirit of what I call don't forget we are libertarians as well. I mean, libertarian thoughts. I'll defend you for saying anything you want to say about me, as long as you don't take a cutlass to cut my head or whatever hurts me. I have every liberty to do that. And I think that the challenge for many people is that because he's within an environment or within an establishment that espouses independence, political thoughts, and indeed non-partisan nature, then obviously coming out the way he did was problematic. And I think I can't fault anybody who thinks that way. Having said that, I think also that people must be allowed to express their convictions as long as they do not override that of the organization. I say certain things as well. I mean, Bright Simmons writes about a lot of things. I say things, sometimes people feel that what I'm saying inures to the benefit of
party
one
X
party,
or party Y, right.
or party X or party Y. But of course, I probably haven't expressed it in the strongest terms as Kofi Bentil did. And those were pretty strong terms, really, that he expressed. I think people were worried that some of the things he said were things that, as an organization, we had actually talked about, like the Russian-Ukraine thing and all of that. Those obviously were not things that people were happy about. But
so this is not stained IMANI Africa in any way?
Oh, well,
it's not
I think temporarily people would be worried.
Political.
I doubt. I think people should look for our work. If you see what we write and the things we do, it's always accompanied with probably data. I mean, otherwise, if you are passing off comments and all of that, anybody can pass comments. But when it comes to the real politics, the real work, I'll say, look at what we put on paper.
Right. Well, it's been interesting, hasn't it? But time flies, and indeed, whatever has a beginning
has an end.
Must have an end. It's been refreshing catching up with you here, and of course coming to your wonderful premises here in Cudjoe. We're grateful for your time, frankly, Cudjoe.
My pleasure.
We wish you the best.
Thank you.
As you work in this crucial year.
Yes, we'll be partnering, so don't worry at all.
Right, right.
Sure.
This has been our interaction with Franklin Cudjoe. He is founding president of IMANI Africa, and we've been talking about Ghana, our Ghana. Thank you for watching.
Welcome back on the AM show. Before that, you were just watching Benjamin Akakpo engage the president of IMANI Africa. Now, it's time for us to have a conversation on a centenary celebration. Enterprise Insurance is 100 years old. Now, this company has launched its centenary celebrations under the theme Celebrating Our Legacy, Securing Your Future. Let's hear more about this significant or magnificent milestone of one of Ghana's most successful indigenous companies. I'm joined in the studio by Akosia Ansayintri, who's the Managing Director of Enterprise Insurance, and Phyllis Wood-Nate, who's Head Group Communications and Synergy of Enterprise Insurance. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Very beautiful.
Thank you very much, and so are you.
Yes, thank you. It's a ladies' affair this morning.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
Really good.
Thank you. Do you feel like you're 100 years old already?
We don't.
Yeah?
We are 100, but we look young.
Yeah. So can you share a little history in brief about Enterprise Insurance and, this milestone that you're celebrating right now?
Sure. Okay. So we started a long time ago, as you said, in 1924. At that time, we were an agency office of a UK-based insurance company known as Royal Exchange Assurance Company.
Okay.
So for about 3 decades, yes, we offered life and general business insurance for the merchants who plied the West African trade routes. Okay. So then in 1952? Yes, 1952 that we became a fully fledged insurance company, often a composite company. So we moved from agency to a fully fledged insurance company.
Right.
Then in 1977 is when we changed our name to Enterprise Insurance. So all along we're Royal Exchange, and then we changed to exactly. Okay. So 1977 is when we became Enterprise Insurance. And then when the Ghana Stock Exchange was created in 1990, we were one of the first companies to be listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange. And for many years, we were the only insurance company listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Okay. Then because of our growth objectives, in the year 2010, we rearranged the affairs of the company and created a holding company called Enterprise Group. So Enterprise Group became like the mother, and then Enterprise Insurance, which started out as the main insurance company, became a subsidiary of the Enterprise Group. At that time, we had other sister companies. We had Enterprise Life, we had Enterprise Trustees, which is the pensions, and then we had Enterprise Properties. So they were all subsidiaries of Enterprise Group. Of course, since then we've added a few more subsidiaries. Yes. We are into life, we are into general business, which pensions.
I'm your client, actually.
Oh, great!
Yes, you do, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you for your business.
Yes, thank you.
Then we are into health, and then funeral services. We even have footprint outside Ghana. Okay. We are in Gambia and Nigeria as well. So if you look at where we started as a humble agency office of a UK-based company up to where we are today, for sure that it would not have been possible without the support of our fantastic clients. Ghana has been so good to us, and this is a success story that every Ghanaian should share in, because it's a truly Ghanaian company that has survived the test of time. We all know we were here before Ghana was born. We were here when Akosombo was created. I mean, we've been an eyewitness and a contributor to the development, 100-year story.
I'm sure this is why this celebration is so significant, 100 years. But you say securing our future. I'm putting myself there because I'm your client. How do you intend to actually secure our future? And, on the back of the significance of this 100-year celebration. You want to, yes.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah. So our theme is celebrating our legacy and securing your future.
Okay.
And Sweetie, as you rightly know, for a company to survive 100 years is a big deal on all levels. So our story is not just about the passage of time, but it's actually a testament to the enduring values that has guided us along the way. We are celebrating a legacy of resilience. Phyllis has just shared the various legislative, political, economic changes that the company had to go through. We are also celebrating a legacy of growth. We have had leaders who have been audacious enough to challenge the status quo to help us grow. We are celebrating a legacy of adaptability and innovation. We have listened to customers, we have listened to the market, and we have come up with meaningful solutions. And so we need to pay homage to all those who have helped us get where we are today. We are talking about our valued customers, we are talking about our dedicated staff, we are talking about our steadfast shareholders, and the communities that we serve.
Right.
And for us, the theme is not just a nod to the past, it's also a pledge to the future. And this future, it's about safeguarding the interest of all our stakeholders.
Right.
We need to make sure that we continue to remain a beacon of stability and reliability in this ever dynamic environment. So our centenary is not just a milestone.
Yeah.
It's a bright future we are building together to ensure that Ghanaians not only believe in the value of insurance, but also in the possibility of building a business that would transcend founders in the first generation.
There's no doubt that you've done this for 100 years, so of course. But Akosia, can you tell us some of the activities you'd be doing to mark this fantastic centenary celebration? What should we look out for?
Okay, so at Enterprise...
Oh, sorry, Phyllis rather, please.
Actually, Akosia is the MD, and she's really on top of all the activities. She organized everything.
All right, go ahead, take that for it.
Yeah, and at Enterprise, our faith and trust in the role that God plays in our business is very, very vital. And so we are starting this celebrations with a Thanksgiving service.
Okay.
It's coming off this Friday. We are going to thank God, express our gratitude to Him for His goodness over the years, 100 years and counting. And we also have activities that we've scheduled for our agents and brokers. They have been valuable partners in helping us building the business over the years. And then our customers like you. This is your finier. This is your year. It's our year. And we have a lot of awards for our customers. Currently, as we speak, we are running the Yafini Moto promo, where we are rewarding motor customers on 3 different levels. So you get an instant gift when you buy a new motor policy with us or you renew a motor policy. And in addition to that, at the end of the month in which you bought that product, we will put you all in a draw and you are eligible to win laptops, television sets, other appliances. And at the end of June, that is when we end our promo, there's the grand prize of a Nissan Kicks SUV up for grabs. And then the first and second runners up to get a full a ticket, all expenses paid.
When you say up for grabs, does it mean there's going to be a draw or something?
Yes.
So I can put my name, I can give you my name secretly.
All you need to do to be eligible for this draw is to either buy a new motor policy or renew your motor policy between January and June.
Wow, fantastic ideas and activities there. So, Phyllis, on the back of that, or in addition to that, how do you intend to secure a future for the next 100 years? I'm confident you're going to be here for the next 100 and more. So, what is the journey looking like for the next phase of this milestone that you've achieved?
So we are very excited about the journey ahead. We believe that our whole growth and well-being as a company and for the clients is anchored on 2 main things: consumer centricity and innovation. Consumer centricity because we know it's all about the consumer, and that's what we do for Enterprise. We believe that the customer is King Kong, so we make sure that everything is centered around the consumer. So it means that we are coming out with needs-based solutions that speak to the uniqueness of the individuals. I mean, yes, we have many clients, but everybody is different. We need to be able to come up with tailor-made solutions that suits the exact person who we are talking to. So that is key for us, consumer centricity. The second one is innovation. We know that as old as we are, 100 years, there's no way that the skills that have brought us this far will be the same that will propel us into the next 100. The world is changing so much. So innovation is the key word for us. We need to be able to come up with cutting-edge technology that will make sure that we are offering convenience and affordability to the client. It's very, very important that the clients should be able to afford the great things that we come out with. So innovation, so I mean, we should expect that we'll be at the forefront of industry, coming up with new things, you know, for others to catch on and try and copy, but delivering the best to our consumers at all times. Fantastic times ahead.
Consumer centricity. I like the way you just, All right, so any final words before we wrap this up?
I think, first of all, we would like to thank you for the opportunity to share our story. We'd like to thank your viewers.
Please talk to them.
Your viewers for taking time out to listen to us. We would like to thank our customers and our partners. Without them, there would have been no Enterprise Insurance story to share today. We would also like to thank our staff, both past and present, and their families for their dedication and commitment to the cause. Would also want to say a big thank you to our shareholders who have supported us throughout this journey. I think Phyllis would add.
That's it. In addition to our gratitude, we want to let our clients understand that at Enterprise, we believe that the road to success is always under construction. It is a continuous thing. So please, let us take advantage of this centenary celebrations. Let us hear from you. Let's know what you want from us. So we've established feedback systems, digital, physical. Let's hear from you. We want to remain relevant to you. So please, let's do this together.
Wow. Thank you so much. That is Enterprise at 100. Celebrating the legacy and securing our future. Akosiasa Entry is Managing Director of Enterprise Insurance, and Phyllis Wood-Nate is Head of Group Communications and Synergy at Enterprise Insurance. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're looking forward to joining in your celebrations.
Yes,
and
yes.
That draw, please, I want to put my name on the paper so that
just buy a motor policy and you're in.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. All right, thank you all so much. We are not done. There's still more right after this. Coming up, though, Ghana diagnosed its first AIDS case in March 1986. And by May 1986, 26 cases had been identified. And since then, the country's experienced a generalized HIV epidemic with a current prevalence of 1.7% in the general population. We have more coming up right after. Do stay. Welcome back. So, like I said before we went on that short break, we're going to talk about HIV and AIDS. We know that HIV has been in the country for so long, and Ghana diagnosed its first AIDS case in March 1986, and by May 1986, 26 cases had been identified. And since then, the country has experienced a general HIV epidemic with a current prevalence of 1.7% in the general population. But 20 years ago, antiretrovirals or antiretroviral drugs were introduced into the country. And today, this year, they're celebrating 20 years of saving lives, of helping people manage and live with HIV. I'm joined in the studio by Kenneth Aye Danso, who's Head Strategic Information Unit of the National AIDS Control Program. Good morning, Ken. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting us.
How are you feeling this morning?
Well, I'm feeling great.
Fantastic.
By the grace of God.
Great. So let me start by simply asking, what's the HIV situation in Ghana right now?
Thank you very much. So currently the HIV situation in the country, for every 100 tests that you do, you are likely to have 2 people being tested positive.
Wow.
And so HIV affects children, it affects adults, it affects pregnant women. And so all these populations are affected.
Right.
And currently we have about 354,000 people who are estimated to be living with HIV.
Okay.
And then out of this figure, we have about 72% of that that know their HIV status.
Right.
That constitutes about 254,000.
And all these...
And out of this number, we have 86% of that, which is about 222,581 that are on the antiretroviral therapy.
Okay.
But that means that we have about 100,000 people in the country who are estimated to be living with HIV, but they are undiagnosed.
Oh, wow. Okay. So those who have been diagnosed,
Yes.
They are able to live normal lives because of antiretroviral drugs.
Exactly the case.
Okay. How does that work? Do they pay for it? If they're diagnosed, does the government supplement? What is the what are the ramifications around living with HIV on antiretroviral drugs?
Okay, so let me start by saying that in the past, when one was diagnosed as having HIV, what happened was that there are certain infections which ideally the body could have handled well.
Okay.
But because your immune system was compromised, you couldn't handle. So these were called opportunist infections. So these were the ones that were killing people. So in those days, once you get HIV, it was quoted more or less like a death sentence. But then when ARVs came into the picture, what the ARV does is that it comes to interrupt the natural cycle of the replication of the virus, and thereby the quality of life is improved. So HIV, the ARTs come to make sure that once you take it and then you adhere to the medications, your quality of life is improved.
Okay.
And it's free.
It's free?
It's free.
Okay. Oh, sorry. My producer just told me you're Reverend. Hi, Reverend. Sorry that I left that out. So
No
Reverend Kenneth
problem
Ayedan. So, okay. So if it's free, how many facilities are operating currently where people can go and have access to antiretroviral drugs?
Currently, we have 735 ART sites spread across the 16 regions.
Okay.
And then aside that, we have about 6,000 prevention of mother-to-child transmitting centers. These are antenatal sites. But when we started with just only 3.
Yeah.
In 2000, there were 3. But currently, we have 735 spread across the country.
Okay. So 20 years on.
Yes.
What does that look like now?
Well, it looks terrific because 20 years ago, when persons were diagnosed, it was more or less like a whole lot of psychosocial challenges.
It was like a death sentence.
A death sentence.
Yeah.
And you could see people on telly wasting syndrome where they have lost about 10% of their body weight. They were like skeleton and all that. So it was scary. And people were dying. But now, 20 years down the line, you can see these people are living. We have persons who are on antiretroviral medication for the past 20 years, and they are living healthy. I mean, some of these people are married, they have children who are HIV negative, and it's so heartwarming to notice all this. So we have come a very long way.
What are some of the things you're doing right now to mark this 20-year celebration or anniversary of antiretroviral drugs and the work that is doing to help Ghanaians living with HIV live a normal life? I mean, on the back of that, people no longer discriminate. At first, I remember when people, skinny people were discriminated against. If you're skinny, they'll call you, they say you have HIV and all that. So I'm sure antiretroviral drugs is like a miracle that most people have prayed for. So what are some of the things you're doing to mark this milestone?
You mentioned discrimination, but we still have some challenges when it comes to discrimination because it's a barrier where it is a bottleneck for people seeking to know their status, and then when they are positive also getting on the medication. So we are working on that, and we are appealing to the general public to help us out in this. Once you have HIV, that is not a case, it's not the end of the world. We don't have to discriminate because you can be living with HIV out there.
Yeah.
And so we are marking the 20 years of HIV in the country. We first started with a media launch that we had last week.
Okay.
And then we also continue with having further engagement with the media. We will be celebrating by having a time with the National Associations of Persons who are living with HIV. And then we also have a soccer event between two of the giants of the Ghana soccer. And then we also have some tour to visit some historic ART sites. And then we'll also have we'll crown this with a National AIDS Day celebration in December. We'll also be having some inter-school quiz and debates along the line.
Inter-school quiz and debates.
Yes.
Do you still have those school clubs? When I was in secondary school, we used to have these HIV clubs where we would meet, I think, once a week to talk about HIV, and some of us were even ambassadors. I was an ambassador. We'll go out and talk to people about prevention, how you can live a normal life with all that. Do you still do that?
Yes, we still have them. We still have them.
Right, and they're very active in these schools?
They are very active.
Okay.
They are very active, but we need to do more because nowadays people think that because ARVs have come into the picture, people are thinking that HIV is no more. And so we need to do more and then increase education in our schools.
Last year, there was an issue about the struggle, because you mentioned that you're still, facing some challenges in the good work that you're doing, about the cost of clearing antiretrovirals at the ports. I remember, was it Dr. Ado also? Yes, spoke on the pulse, and he talked about if the government does not come into aid in clearing these drugs from the ports, then people's lives would be in danger. How's that situation?
So I want to pick it from the angle that we need all hands on deck. The government is collaborating, doing so much, partners are supporting.
Okay.
And so currently we also need some form of domestic support from our companies in the country and all that, to support what the government and partners are doing. So last year there was a few gaps here and there. And so that is why we have set up the AIDS Fund. The Ghana AIDS Commission have set up the AIDS Fund to be able to support some of this. And so we are appealing to companies in the country to be able to support. And so one of the key activities which we are doing is to also help us to be able to engage the private sector to come on board to support the procurement of ARVs. And when that is possible, then we'll have a seamless availability and supply of ARVs in the country.
Okay, so is this the ARV program, is it sustainable? Do you have adequate funding now? Like, are you able to go about your activities smoothly without the issue of cost currently?
So currently, all persons that are diagnosed to be living with HIV and then willingly want to get on the medication are on the therapy.
Do we have enough to cater
so
for
we have
all these
enough
people?
to cater for all these people. However, because these persons will be on medication for life, we need to think about the future, how we are going to sustain them. And that's how come we need additional support. But as it stands now, everybody, anyone who is HIV positive and willingly wants to get on the medication, medications are available for them.
Okay. So although you say it's free, how much does it cost for a person living with HIV to take an antiretroviral drug?
For a person, once it's free, we take care of that.
No.
The lab, okay.
If they were to pay for it, how much would it cost? Ideally, out of curiosity, what does it cost?
And so I think some time ago there was a research that was done, some 4 or 5 years ago, that averagely for a year it was costing about, I think about roughly about 2,000 Ghana cedis.
For a year?
But then if you have to quantify everything, that would be above that, because there are lab investigations which you must do from time to time. And so all these things are free. The cost of ART, HIV testing, being put on the medication is free.
Right. So as part of your celebrations, I'm sure you're sensitizing, you have messages that you want to give the public, and please use the platform to let the people know. Yes.
Thank you very much. So I first want to start with, how do you get HIV? So once you have unprotected sex, you're exposing yourself. So we need to make informed decisions. Drug use, alcohol use cloud our judgment. And so we need to be careful in this area. When you have a pregnant woman, definitely that woman is exposed to sex. And so we encourage all pregnant women, when they go to the ANC, they'll be offered HIV testing. They need to embrace that, because our research shows that HIV can be transmitted, and then the percentage for sex is about 75%, and then also other modes account for mother to child is about 25%.
Oh, you mean 70% of people who contract the disease contract it through sexual activities?
Through sexual activities.
Right.
And now you realize that from the pregnant mother to the unborn child, when the mother is exposed, that considers about 25%.
Okay.
And so that is why I'm placing light on the fact that pregnant women should access the HIV services. And then also, you also have the unsafe blood transfusion, and then also the use of sharp objects. Once somebody is exposed and you share sharp object with the person, and then you have a cut, it's possible that you can be exposed. And so we are advising all persons in the country, if you don't know the HIV status, get to know your HIV status. You can walk into every health center available. It is free in the private, in the public facilities. HIV is free. And once you are HIV positive, we encourage you to get onto the medication, because it's going to improve your quality of life. You can live a normal life. you can look after your children and all that. And also we encourage the whole country. When persons are living with HIV, we don't have to discriminate against them.
Right.
Because as you are discriminating, you yourself may be living with the virus and you will not be aware.
Right.
So you are either infected with HIV or you are affected by it. So we are in together. So together, all hands on deck, let's fight and end the epidemic by 2030.
You mentioned that you should go to a health facility to
Yes.
check, but I know there are self-test kits too.
Exactly.
Would you encourage those, or must
We also encourage that. There are persons who want to test at the comfort of their homes. Once we take these self-test kits, the instructions are written on it. So you start the test and then you go and continue at the health facility. If you are reactive, then you go and continue, because currently the testing is in 3 phases. The first screening, the second screening, and then the third screening.
Okay.
Then you can be diagnosed as having HIV.
Okay. Right. So how long are you, how long will the celebrations last?
Well, the celebration is going to last the whole year.
Okay.
And so we are calling all of you to come and join. And so far we are so excited by the way the media has embraced this. And so we want to appeal to all Ghanaians, especially the private facilities, to take advantage and come on board and support the fight against HIV in the country. Together we can make it.
Together we can make it. That is, thank you so much, Reverend
welcome.
Kenneth Ayedanso. He's the head of Strategic Information Unit at the National AIDS Control Program. And we were just chatting about the 20 years anniversary or celebration of antiretroviral drugs that have come to help persons living with HIV to live a normal life. Thank you so much. And we'll follow up with your celebrations. You know, you said we are all in this together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. But we are not done. In a moment, we'll open the phone lines and whatever your thoughts are on everything we've discussed this morning, from the announcement of the campaign team of flag bearer of the NPP to HIV, and even the discussion on the centenary anniversary of Enterprise Insurance. We'll be back shortly. Insurance. I'm joined in the studio by my guest, Benjamin Akaku. Welcome on the show, Benjamin.
Thank you for welcoming me back.
No, you're my guest. Come on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. How's the morning been for you? I know yesterday you were out there.
Yeah, it was a
when
drain.
we launched our election headquarters and a wide array of election programs that's carefully designed to inform our electorate. How was that for you?
Like I said, it was draining, baking in the sun, basically. But that's what we do. We go out there, we get things done for God and country. And we launched our election programming for the year. Of course, you know that JoyNews, we're independent, fearless, and credible. And we'll bring you all the tidbits you need to know in the course of the year. So interesting dynamics that came up. One of them being the fact that Dr. Bosman Asari passed through and confirmed that we would not have a November 7 election date. It will be in December, as we've come to know. And that, in fact, after consulting, after listening, giving ear to civil society groupings, the public, and many of those who have railed against the cancellation of the use of indelible ink, they will actually go back to it. So those were two big stories from yesterday. Of course, there was also that interesting bit about the DCOP who came on board and spoke about security. I think in a way, part of it may have been taken out of context by some media houses, because we did not put that out. And the reaction from the police, I think I'll leave that out. But yeah, it was a very interesting bit. I interacted a bit with Ivor Greenstreet, and others from the UNDP, and it was very interesting. There were MPs there, there was the police in full force, There was the Market Queen,
yes,
among others who featured prominently. So it was a great launch.
If you missed it, you can watch some of the photos and read the stories on our website, myjoyonline.com, and across all our social media platforms. But I was particularly excited to hear that both parties and everyone who passed through pledged for peace in the coming elections in December 2024. So we're all hoping for a free, fair, and peaceful electoral process in December, on December 7th, as confirmed by the Electoral Commission, no longer November 7th.
You said free, fair, and what?
Peaceful.
Peaceful, yes, but transparent as well.
Transparent as well,
is crucial in an electoral year. But as we wrap up the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. So give us a call. Let's know what's on your mind. We've discussed quite a lot today, from HIV to the political dynamics that we've spoken about. Franklin Cudjoe sharing his thoughts. He says there are some demons at the Ministry of Sports. Demons there. He's spoken about a plethora of issues, including governance, corruption, the economy, and all of that. You could share your thoughts with us on those by calling that number at the bottom of your screen, 0302-211-691. 0302-211-691. But sweetie, something that got me a bit curious. I think it's, I saw a story where Otto Addo, you know, we had Kwesi Appiah, chapter 1 and chapter 2.
Okay.
Now it's Otto Addo, and yes, he led the team to the World Cup and all. I never felt he was really, because, you know, he's with Dortmund, and they sort of loaned him to us to do this till the World Cup. He said he would resign no matter what happened, and he did. And I think that was living up to what he had said. That was being responsible. Now we're told that in the search for a new coach, he is the lead candidate because in the interview he had the highest marks. And I'm asking myself, what the heck is going on with our sports? I'm wondering whether the demons Franklin Cudjoe is speaking of isn't impacting our sports, the GFA, the sports ministry. I don't know.
But Benjamin, hold your thoughts. We have Patrick on the line. Good morning, Patrick. Welcome on the show.
Yeah, good morning.
Share your thoughts with us.
I want to contribute to the program.
Go ahead.
Please, you people, this thing we have been talking about, the peace.
The what?
Sometimes you talk about peace, it irritates me. Since 1992, up to 2000 election, we have known how the election goes.
Oh, you're talking about peace?
Peace, yeah. We have seen and known how the election goes in this country. You people should talk about justice and fairness. You see, your colleague was talking about transparency. And transparency is within fairness. So you should talk about justice and fairness. If there's no justice and fairness, and to bracket transparency, then the election is not an election.
Well, Patrick, there are a lot of things that happen during the election, so we cannot leave one out. Thank you for adding your voice.
Listen to me. You people are running about the issue. You are not tackling the issue well. How can you preach peace if I'm being cheated? That cheating aspect of the election, which is creating a problem in this country. People are being suffered in the election. People are being killed. People are being butchered. People are being slaughtered. And you know all this. You are preaching peace. You have to be quiet. Because of peace, I have to be quiet so that I will be treated. Are you telling me that way? Madam, because of peace, if somebody is treating me, I have to shut my mouth. Quietly, because of peace. No peace, no peace, no peace.
Patrick, I do not think that is the position. I think you have a point.
Please. And that's what I said. I do push preach about fairness, justice.
Right.
Fairness and justice and transparency.
And I'm saying thank you for adding that to the number of things we should discuss. Peace is as important as justice and all of the things that we've mentioned. So, Patrick, thank you for adding that. You know, we appreciate it. Okay, we will talk about justice. Thank you.
A fair point Patrick makes that, and you can tell he comes from a passionate angle of things. But the justice and the rest really are not in our purview, basically. The authorities that must guarantee justice are there. So talk about them. How can we even speak of these elections without justice? If they are not just, then it means the results themselves are not fair and they are not something we can hold on to. So I think it's a without which not as far as elections are concerned. And that's why we spoke about transparency. We have another caller. Pius is on the line. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Where are you calling from, Pius?
From Northern Region.
Where in the Northern Region?
Wolensi.
Wolensi, right. What are your thoughts for us?
Concerning the election, most of the time we always talk about the people at the higher authority, but not also considering we the people at the villages or the rural areas. What I want to say to we those at the rural areas or the local areas we will see. In elections, it is not only the people, the big people who are there that we should achieve. We those who are the people we those are going to vote, we should know what we want. And I don't think the candidates we are voting for always come here to cause the trouble. If you make up your mind that you want to have peace and fair elections, you will do. You come and see people fighting and it's something that even when they fight for their parties, they won't gain anything. You've trusted your candidate you are voting for. So why are you then fighting for the person in the ending of life? I think from the bottom to the top, we should all play our role. And also stop accusing the leaders always. And most of the time when it happens, the leaders, they are not everywhere. I'm representing my constituency maybe next year, or maybe if I'm elected. I should know what to do as a member. You come and see the casualties sometimes they bring to the health centers, and you just realize that the problem is not from the top, it's from we also at the bottom too. No tree bear fruit without the roots being affected. If the roots down there are not getting enough water, the branches will not bear. So if we are to push the leaders up there, then we should know where we are standing on the ground. We should control the game of the election from the bottom as members. From this time, I'm not talking about the leaders, but we, the ordinary people, as we may say. You don't have anything and you are the one extending your life for. If you think that maybe the president, when he thinks today, he will fly outside the country, ask yourself, if you are sick, will you be fly out even to your to a better region? Or if you are in a better district, will you be sent to the regional level? So if I know that right now, if I'm 40, I don't have money to get to maybe Tamale Teaching Hospital, and then I'm now fighting for someone I know that if I get injured, I will not get the opportunity to go there. Why should I fight? So we should control the game. We have the power to control our leaders in some of these things. Well, how can a group of people be ruling all of us or brutalizing all of us? It says that what we also say also counts. So if you join them and claim that maybe you want money, let's say that they are saying that they are contributing, they are paying them money to vote. If you all agree that we won't accept those behaviors, it will reduce all these casualties.
Right.
The people have our own problems, so we should also on it as members.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. If we have one last caller, we can sneak it in. If not, we'll get ready to wrap up on this segment. If there's another call, we can take that final call and wrap. 0302-211-691. Last call, and then we can go. If
so
not,
about Otuado.
Right.
I think that if the standard is that high, the standard is as high as qualifying for the World Cup and not making any remarkable
inroads.
Yes. Then perhaps we can say that he's done something good for us. So when he comes back, he can do better. But aside that qualification for the 2022 World Cup, I really do not know what Otuado has done that merits him coming back again as coach for the Black Stars. I just wanted to put that out there because he asked about Otuado.
I don't know what the problem is with Ghana sports, but it's throughout from the top to the bottom.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The demons are at work.
The demons, huh?
Right.
Well, we're going to have to wrap up this conversation. Ghana, never be in Sisiso, one Tiasie. I said, low and Kai, you can't think far. We can't think far, but Charlie. Ghana we day. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. I've done this together with
Sweetie Abochi.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be back same time tomorrow. But up next, JoyNews Desk.